किशोर मंच एक खुला मंच है, आए जब भी चाहे। किशोर मंच एक खुला मंच है, आए जब भी चाहे। हर किशोर को मिलेगा अवसर, खुलती जाए राहें। आए जब भी चाहे, आए जब भी चाहे, आए जब भी चाहे, आए जब भी चाहे। हो कला सामाजिक ज्ञान, भाषा गणित या हो विज्ञान, कठिन नहीं है विषय कोई भी, करो जरा सा ध्यान। हो कला सामाजिक ज्ञान, भाषा गणित या हो विज्ञान, कठिन नहीं है विषय कोई भी, करो जरा सा ध्यान।
ये है
किशोर मंच।
Welcome students. In today's episode on company account, we will be discussing about share issued at discount, how we issue them, forfeit them and reissue them, and then we will be taking a practical question on that, and then we will be discussing how we issue share at premium and the same points for that also, that is issue, forfeiture and reissue, and then we will conclude the important points in the above two cases, and after that we will be discussing the concept of calls in arrear, calls in advance and some miscellaneous topics like share issued to promoter, etc. So, let us start with the first topic today, shares issued at discount. What are the entries? Their issue, forfeiture and reissue, etc. While issuing share at discount, we debit share allotment account, discount on issue is also debited to equity share capital, and when we get the money, the entry will be bank account debit to share allotment. When these share issued at discount are forfeited, then the entry will be equity share capital account debit and discount on issue will be credited back, because when we issued the shares it was debited, when we take it back it will be credited. To shares forfeited, whatever we have received, and to various calls like allotment and first call, whatever is unpaid. So, you have to remember that discount is credited back on forfeiture, and please remember when we will reissue it will be again be debited. Let us see the entry. When these shares are reissued, the entry will be bank account debit, discount on issue debit, and if still some discount is there, it will be debited to share forfeited account to share capital. The important point is whatever discount was credited, it is again debited, and if we still need more discount, it will be debited to share forfeited account, right. So, to conclude we can say first debit the discount on issue, then credit on forfeiture and then debit again on reissue. Let us see this question. Dipanshu Limited issued 10,000 shares of rupees 10 each at a discount of 10%, payable 3 on application, 4 on allotment and 2 on first and final call. So, 1 rupee discount will be adjusted on allotment if nothing is told. All the money received except final call on 500 shares. So, these were forfeited and subsequently reissued at 6 rupees as fully paid. So, we have to show all the journal entries, right. Let us start the question. The first entry will be bank account debit 30,000, that is 10,000 into 3, to equity share application 30,000, being share application money received. Please note, we have to give narrations with every entry. Second point, equity share application will be now transferred to equity share capital, and the entry will be equity share application debit 30,000 to equity share capital. The next entry, equity share allotment debit 40,000, that is 4 rupees, and 1 rupee discount will be debited here, discount on issue debited 10,000 to equity share capital 50,000. And when we receive this money, bank account debit 40,000 to equity share allotment 40,000. Next, first call due, equity share first call account debit 20,000 to equity share capital 20,000, and now we will receive some money less on the bank entry, and that will be like this. Bank account debit to equity share first call 19,000, that is 20,000 total due minus 500 into 2, whatever amount is not received. In the next entry, when we will forfeit these 500 shares, the entry will be equity share capital account debit 5,000, that is 500 shares into 10 rupees the called up amount, and discount on issue will be credited. I have told you, whenever we are forfeiting the shares, it will be credited. Discount on issue 500 into 1, 500 rupees, and to share forfeited 500 into 7, whatever you have received will be credited, and to share final call what you have not received 500 into 2, that is 1000 rupees. So, please remember, discount credited on forfeiture and share forfeited credited with the amount received, and the final call whatever you have not received is again written with the name share final call 1000 rupees. In the next entry, when we reissue these shares at 6 rupees, the entry will be bank account debit 500 into 6, that is 3000, discount on issue debit 500 into 1, 500 rupees, and share forfeited debit 500 into 3, because you still need 3 rupees discount, as you have issued at 6 rupees, 1 rupee was discount, and the remaining 3 you will be using from share forfeited account, that is share forfeited debit 500 into 3, 1500 rupees, and to equity share capital 5,000. Now, out of total share forfeited 3500, you have used what amount 1500, and the remaining will be your profit, and the entry will be share forfeited account debit to capital reserve, that is 2000 rupees. So, our next case is when shares are issued at premium. The entry will be equity share allotment debit to equity share capital to security premium account, that is the entry number 3 on allotment, and when we receive the money, bank account debit to equity share allotment. And when these shares issued at premium are forfeited, we do this entry equity share capital debit called up amount, and security premium will be debited if it is not received. I think you remember I told you in an earlier class that security premium gets debited if it is not received, and if it is received, it is your income, then it will never be debited. So, let us do this entry equity share capital debit with the called up amount, security premium debit if not received, and again to share forfeited whatever you have received, and to equity share allotment and to equity share first call whatever you have not received will be coming with their names. And when we reissue this bank account debit, share forfeited debit to equity share capital. If at all we are using share forfeited, then it will be debited, and of course, we are issuing at par or at premium, then we will not use this share forfeited, and it will be simply transferred to capital reserve account. So, let us conclude the important points of the above two discussions. First point, Forfeit whatever you have received. Second point, premium will be debited only when it is not received. Next, discount will always be credited on forfeiture. Next, if required, discount again debited on reissue. And the last point, amount not received is credited on forfeiture. Whatever amount is not received is credited on forfeiture. Let us discuss the concept of calls in arrear, calls in advance, etc. Calls in arrear means whatever money is not received from the shareholders. When you make a call and they don't pay the money, that is called calls in arrear. We have to take interest at 5% per annum on those calls in arrear. Please remember, calls in arrear interest rate 5% per annum. Now, directors can waive this interest, means they may take, they may not take, in the best interest of the company and shareholders, right. So, they have an option. And the next concept is calls in advance, that is when somebody pays money in excess of what is required by him, that is money received in advance from a shareholder. The interest will be given to him at the rate of 6% per annum. Please remember, calls in advance we pay to shareholders 6% per annum, and this charge has to be paid, means this is not at the discretion of the company, you have to pay it. So, how to remember 5% and 6%? You can remember like this, company is a big person, so they pay more and take less. Company pay 6% per annum to you and take 5% from you. Okay. Now, let us discuss another point, when shares are issued to promoters or underwriters. But for this you must understand what is a promoter. Promoter is a person who conceives the idea of bringing the company into existence. That is, he do the simple homework, what should be the name of company, what the company will be doing and all that things, right. And who is an underwriter? He guarantee that if you take money from public and if public is not interested in that, he will take that particular amount of capital and provide the company with the money required, right. So, he is guaranteeing the raising of capital. If public is not paying, I will pay it. So, you better go with your project and do not worry about the money part. So, please remember, promoter means who bring the company into existence and underwriter means who guarantee the money part, right, money part. When we issue the shares to promoters, these are considered as formation expenses, that is goodwill. So, you can name formation expenses or goodwill, whatever you like, both are okay. So, the entry we make is formation expenses or goodwill account debit to equity share capital. Now, this is for promoters, right, but when we issue it to the underwriters, so let us think about, if we are paying underwriting commission to the underwriters, what will be the entry? Underwriting commission is an expense, it will be debited, and to underwriters they will be credited because we have to pay the money to them. And when we have to take money from them, then underwriter will be debtor for us. So, underwriter will be debited and equity share capital will be credited. So, when we are paying commission, they are our liability, and when we are issuing share, they are our asset. So, we have to take money, right, and then we will make a net entry, whatever we have to give or whatever we have to take. Suppose we have to take money from underwriters, then it will be bank account debit to underwriters, or if we have to pay money to them, then underwriter account debit to bank, that is debit the receiver, credit what goes out. Okay. Let us start with some miscellaneous concepts like under subscription of share. When the company invite application for shares and the application received are less, in that case we will issue only those number of shares which are actually applied by the public and not the issued capital. So, effect is that our paid up capital will be less than the issued capital, because if public has applied for less, how can you give more to them? They have not applied for it. Okay. Oversubscription of share means when public applies for more share than demanded by the company. So, it is a case of oversubscription, but the company can choose any of the following options. First, either they can refund the excess money and allot to the remaining, or they can allot pro rata to all applicants, or there can be a combination of both the cases. But please remember, company cannot issue more share than what is actually offered to the public. Maximum capital they can give is whatever they have offered to the public. Let us talk about what is sweat equity shares. Section 79A of Company Act says, if we are issuing equity shares to employee or directors at a discount or for consideration other than cash, because they are providing technical knowledge or their intellectual property rights to us, right? They are doing something for the company, so you are issuing to them the shares at discount. That is called sweat equity share. Now, what is right shares? Right share are those share when company offers share to those people who are existing shareholder. They may take whole or they may renounce some of them. Renounce means they may say we are not going to take it. Only after that a company can issue the shares to general public when they have decided whether they are going to take or not take. If they are not taking, only then general public can be given those shares. Let us talk about a concept, buyback of shares. Section 77A. When a company purchases its own shares itself, that is called buyback of shares. It can be done through a fresh issue of shares or other specified securities, or it can be done out of free reserves like general reserve and P&L account, or it can be done out of security premium account. So, in today's discussion what we have done is, I have told you about some issue of shares at discount, at premium, their entries on issue, reissue, forfeiture, and what are their important conclusions, and then we have talked about some miscellaneous topics like buyback, etc. So, in the next class we will be starting with a new chapter, and that will be issue of debentures. Right, till then, thank you very much.
Hello students, today our topic for discussion is Introduction to Economics. This is the chapter 1 of class 12th. Let's start with the term economics. What is economics? Actually, economics is made up of two Greek language words, oikos and nomos, which together called as oikonomia means to manage the household. Now the question is, what is household? Household may be your own home, your society or your country. Actually, there are two types of activities which a household has to manage. One, economic activities, and the other, non-economic activities. But our subject economics is concerned only with economic activities of the household. Now, what are these economic activities? Economic activities are those activities which are done in monetary terms. For example, see what happens. If your mother gives you 500 rupees on your birthday, what will you do of that? Option 1, you may buy a dress. Option 2, you may watch a movie. Option 3, you may go to a restaurant. Option 4, you may enjoy with your friends. Option 5, you may purchase books. Option 6, you may save the amount. Like there are lots of many things which you want to do, as your wants are always unlimited, but resources to satisfy them are also limited. And these resources have alternative uses, that is, they have many uses. So, there is a problem of choice making or problem of allocation of resources as they are limited. There will be the same case even if your mother has given you rupees 5,000, rupees 50,000, rupees 5 lakh, or even if she had given rupees 50 lakh on your birthday, the position will be same because your wishes will arise according to resources and still the result will be same. That is, wants will be still unlimited, resources will be still limited and alternative uses of resources. Now, this is the economics which guides us what we should choose. That want which give us maximum satisfaction. So, this was the need due to which the subject of economics emerged. Now, in how many parts economics can be divided? In the beginning, there was only one economics known as political economy or simply economics. But after 1930, some economists divided the economics into two parts, microeconomics and macroeconomics. Firstly, we will make clear the concept of microeconomics. The word micro is derived from Greek word mikros, M-I-K-R-O-S, means small, tiny. Microeconomics deals with the behavior of individual elements in an economy, such as the determination of the price of a single product, or it deals with the behavior of a single consumer, or microeconomics deals with the behavior of a single business firm. Microeconomics is the study of one particular unit, and that particular unit may be a household or a factor input. It is microeconomics which deals with the problem of price determination and allocation of resources. The main tools of microeconomics are demand and supply of commodities and demand and supply of factors. Microeconomics is also known as price theory. Let us see some examples which are covered under microeconomics. These are the topics which we study in the subject microeconomics, and these are theory of consumer behavior, theory of production and cost, price determination of product under different market conditions, like different market conditions may be when there is a change only in demand, or when there is a change only in supply, or simultaneously there is a change in both. Now, this change may be by the same proportion in demand and supply, there may be change in demand more, or there may be change in supply more. In microeconomics, we consider the pricing of factors of production. Factors of production are land, labor, capital and entrepreneur. That is, in microeconomics, we study the theory of wages, rent and profit. Microeconomics is also concerned with general equilibrium analysis, and sometimes it is also known as welfare economics. So, students, it was all about the microeconomics. Now, the turn of macroeconomics. The word macro is also derived from the Greek language word macros, M-A-K-R-O-S, which means large. Macroeconomics may be defined as that branch of economic theory which studies the behavior of all units combined together. It is a study of aggregates. It is the study of behavior of economy as a whole. As Professor Kernel also has suggested that macroeconomics is the study of forest and not the trees. That is, macroeconomics examines the overall level of a nation's output, nation's employment, nation's prices and foreign trade. As microeconomics is termed as price theory, likewise macroeconomics is also known as theory of income and employment. Some broad areas covered by macroeconomics are theories of business cycles like boom, depression, recession, theories of inflation, theories of deflation, theories of economic growth, theory of national income, national output and employment with its constituents like consumption function and investment function. So students, remember, today no area of economics is more important for a nation's success than its macroeconomic performance. Or we can say that macroeconomics has a significant position in today's economy. So now, from above mentioned discussion, we have seen that there is a difference between microeconomics and macroeconomics. But remember, there is a difference between the two terms, but they do not oppose each other. Instead, these two terms are complementary to each other. As it has been rightly pointed out by Professor Alfred Marshall that as both foot are needed for walking, in the same way micro and macroeconomics both are needed for a scientific thought. Importance of any one cannot be ignored. It was all about the macroeconomics. Now, what is the nature of economics? Under this heading, we generally discuss whether economics is a science or it is an art or economics is both. Before going into this heading, we have to know what is science. Any subject can be regarded as science if it has all the following features. Let's see the features of science. Science is a systematic body of facts. Science establishes relationship between cause and effect. Science is capable of measurement. Science has ability to forecast. In science, laws are derived based on experiments. Now, if we analyze economics or if we compare economics with science, we can say that economics also has the features of science. Like science, it studies cause and effect relationship between economic phenomena. Let us take an example of law of demand. As price rises, quantity demanded falls and vice versa, keeping other things constant. In this law of demand, price is the cause and effect is change in quantity demanded. The second similarity between economics and science is that economics is also capable of being measured in terms of money. Third similarity is that economics also forecast the future market conditions with the help of various statistical and non-statistical tools. In economics also, experiments are done. It's okay not in laboratories but on human behavior. On the basis of above analysis, we can say that economics is science. But remember, it is not a perfect science due to some inherent limitations in it. Means economics has certain inherent shortcomings like laws of economics are not universally true like science. Laws of economics are applicable under certain conditions usually referred to as other things being equal or ceteris paribus, which make these laws less realistic. The second shortcoming of economics is that money, which is used in economics to measure the outcome, is itself a dependent variable. The subject matter of economics is human behavior, which is highly unpredictable. Human behavior goes on changing. Then how law based on human behavior can be regarded as correct when human behavior goes on continuously changing? Next limitation of economics is predictions. Predictions in economics are also not always accurate. On the basis of entire analysis, it is proved that economics is science but not perfect science. Now the question arises whether economics is positive science or normative science. First of all, we should know the meaning of both these terms. First, the term positive. Positive science means accept what exists, or it means as they are. Positive science does not pass value judgments. It does not give moral suggestions. It does not suggest what should be. Rather, positive science focuses only on what is. It does not tell what is right and what is wrong. Professor Lionel Robbins, a renowned economist, supported this positive aspect of economics. Examples of positive science are: first, prices in India are continuously falling. We have to accept it as a fact. Second example, there is an inverse relationship between price and quantity demanded. Now the term normative science. Normative science means what ought to be, what should be. It gives moral judgments like what should be done and what should not. It is concerned with welfare propositions. Professor Alfred Marshall and Professor A.C. Pigou supported this side. Examples of normative science are: first, reducing inequalities should be the major priority for mixed economies. See, there may be many priorities for mixed economies, but the major priority should be the reducing inequality. Here it is a suggestion. It focuses on what should be, so it is a normative statement. Secondly, the government ought to guarantee that our income will not fall. The government ought to guarantee. Again, remember, it is a suggestion. So these were the examples of normative aspect of economics. To conclude, we may say that while laying down laws or theories, economics may be treated as pure and positive science, but as a tool of practical application, it must have some normative goals in view. It was all about science, positive science, normative science. Now the next question which arises in our mind is whether economics is an art also. Yes, our answer is positive. Students, art means practice of knowledge. Economics is an art also because its various branches, consumption, production, etc., provide practical solutions to various economic problems which we face in our day-to-day life. Concludingly, it is proved that economics is both a science and an art. Further, both positive science and normative science. But point to remember is that economics is not a perfect science. So students, this was all for our today's discussion. Rest we will do in our next class, but before leaving, let's summarize what we have done today. We started a chapter with the meaning and need of economics, and we look economics is made up of two words, oikos and nomos, which combinedly means to manage the household. Economics teaches us to make the choices. It guides us in choice making. It suggests us to make that choice which gives us maximum satisfaction in the face of scarcity of resources. So you see, this is the choice making due to which the need of economics emerged. Some economists also defined economics as science of choice making. Next, we came to know about types of economies, that is micro and macro, the two important sides of economies which should be taken together. Then we discussed the nature of economics, in which we proved that economics is both a science and an art, and further both positive science and normative science, but not a perfect science. So students, now there are some multiple choice questions for making your concepts more clear. Question first. Identify the statement which is micro from national angle. I am giving you 4 options. You have to identify that statement which is micro from national angle. First option is per capita income of India. Second option is underemployment in agricultural sector. Third option is lockout in biscuit industry. And fourth option is total savings in India. Yes, you are right. Our answer is option C, lockout in biscuit industry. As you see, per capita income is a macro approach. Underemployment in agricultural sector is also macro from national angle, and total savings in India is also macro aspect. Our second question is, an example of positive economic analysis would be, means I am giving you 4 options and you have to identify that statement which is positive. That is the statement in which suggestions are not given. The first statement is determining the fair price for the food. Second is deciding how to distribute the output of the economy. Third is determining how much income each person should be guaranteed. And fourth option is an analysis of the relationship between the price of food and the quantity purchased. Yes, this is none other than our option fourth. As you see, in all the above 3 options, we are making suggestions what should be done and what should be not. But in the fourth option, there is only an analysis of relation which is cause-effect relationship, and this is positive. Our third question is, choice is created due to. First option, abundance of resources. Second option, urgency of needs. Third option, non-availability of resources. And fourth option, scarcity of resources. Yes, this is scarcity of resources. We have to make choices because resources are scarce. Next question is, which is the branch of economic theory that deals with allocation of resources? Remember that branch of economic theory that deals with allocation of resources. Your first option is microeconomic theory. Second is macroeconomics theory. Third is econometrics. And fourth is political economics. So it is microeconomics, because as we know, microeconomics is that branch of economics which deals with allocation of resources. Now, last question for our consideration is, the term economics is derived from which 2 Greek words, combinedly known as oikonomia, vikonomia, oikonomia or psychonomia? Yes, it is oikonomia. So friends, it was all for today. Thank you.
Hello students, welcome to video lecture series of 11th class economics. In statistics, today we are going to focus on chapter number 3, organization of data. In this chapter, we are going to focus on classification of data, organization of data, frequency distribution and types of various frequency distribution. So, before starting, definitely we should try to correlate this chapter with the second one in which we have studied difference. We already know that there is a difference between census method and sampling method. So, in this module you will know how the data that you collected are to be classified. The purpose of classifying raw data is to bring order in them so that they can be subjected to further statistical analysis easily. So, now we simply know that how to collect data. We know that data can be collected from primary source or secondary source. The collected data is very complex and unorganized mass of figures which is very difficult to analyze and interpret. So, it is known by the name of raw data. It is not capable of offering any meaningful conclusion. It is just like a lump of clay without any shape or identity. So, it needs to be organized before these are presented for final observations. So, what is the meaning of organization? It refers to the arrangement of figures in such a form that comparison of the mass of similar data may be facilitated and further analysis may be possible. For example, it can become more clear by taking a very simple and real life example. Have you ever observed your local junk dealer, or which is also known by the name of kabadiwala, to whom you sell your old newspapers, broken household items, empty glass bottles, plastics, etc. He purchases all these things from you and sells them to those persons who recycle them. But with so much junk in his shop, it would be very difficult for him to manage his trade. So, if he had not organized them properly, so to ease his situation, he suitably groups or classifies various junk. He puts old newspapers together and ties them with a rope. Then he collects all empty glasses and bottles. He puts them in a sack. He heaps the articles of metals in one corner of the shop and he sorts them into various groups like iron, copper, aluminium, brass and so on. So, simply we have done the meaning of organization, that is organizing or arranging the similar things. Simply it can be also elaborated by moving further towards classification. What is the meaning of classification? As the name suggests, we are classifying something. That means what we are trying to do? We are just arranging or organizing similar things into groups or various classes. Now, objectives of classification. The first objective is simplification and briefness. It appears to be very brief and simple. For example, data collected during a population census has to be classified according to its age, sex, marital status and occupation, etc. Utility. It brings out similarity within diverse set of data by making it more useful. The third important point is distinctiveness. It renders obvious differences among the data. For example, facts like educated, uneducated, married, unmarried, they all can be kept in separate classes. Comparability. No doubt, classification helps us in doing comparison of various frequencies as well as various variables. How? For example, if we want to compare between the marks of 11th class statistics and the marks of 11th class accounts. So, we need to classify their marks. After classification of their marks, it will become more easier to compare. The next objective is scientific arrangement. It facilitates arrangement of data in a scientific manner which increases their reliability. For example, the characteristics of income and education can be related after classifying data. Attractive and effective. After arranging all kind of data or after classifying all kind of data, it becomes more attractive and it becomes more effective. That can be used for the further analysis and for the further statistical inquiry. Now, what are the characteristics of a good classification? Or it can be done like that only. What are the requirements a good classification system must have? The first one is comprehensive. As the name suggests, all the classification we are doing, that must be comprehensive. It means it must try to include each and every aspect without leaving anyone unattended. Second point is clarity. If we are doing any kind of classification, we must know that we are doing it for making data more effective, attractive and simple. So, it needs to be more clear. Third one is homogeneity. Homogeneity simply means that we are going to take similar facts or figures in one area and we are going to take another facts in another area. For example, if we want to fix married and unmarried people, they will be segregated accordingly. The next point is suitability. The classification system which we are doing or the data classification must be suitable only to each and everyone or to the analyst. The next one is stability. Stability simply means that if we are doing any kind of classification, it must be like that only. The data must not fluctuate by changing the analyst or the economist. It must remain stable. The last important requirement is elastic. It simply means that it must have a kind of absorption capacity in itself so that it can make any kind of modifications and arrangements if they require to be. Now, what are the bases of classification, or we can say that types of classification? They are broadly divided into 4 categories: chronological, geographical, qualitative and quantitative. The first one is chronological classification. Raw data could be classified in various ways depending on the purpose in hand. They can be grouped according to time. Such a classification is known as chronological classification. Data are classified either in ascending or in descending order with a reference to time, such as it may be years, quarters, months or weeks, etc. It can be further explained with the help of example. In this example, we are talking about population of India on the basis of certain years. In year 1951, it was 35.7 crores, which rose to 68.4 crores in 1981 and 102.7 crores in 2001, which simply tells us that the population is increasing on the basis of certain years. So, this kind of classification is known by the name of chronological classification. That means we are classifying our data on the basis of certain years. The next one is geographical classification. It is also known by the name of spatial classification. In this spatial classification, the data are classified with reference to geographical locations such as countries, states, cities, or it may be districts. For example, yield of wheat for different countries. On one axis we have taken countries, on another axis we have taken yield of wheat. For example, if we are talking about America, it was 1925 kg per acre. In Brazil, it is 127. In France, it is 439 and in India, it is 862. So that means we have classified our data on the basis of geographical aspects of various locations or the countries. The next one is qualitative classification. Sometimes we come across the characteristics that cannot be expressed quantitatively, like characteristics are known by the name of qualities or attributes. For example, nationality, literacy, religion, gender, marital status, etc. They cannot be measured, yet these attributes can be classified on the basis of either the presence or the absence of a qualitative characteristic. Such classification of the data on these attributes is known by the name of qualitative classification. It can also be explained with the help of this flow chart. We have taken population that can be divided into two broader categories, male and female, but can be further divided into married or unmarried male and married and unmarried female. The next type is quantitative classification. As the name indicates, now we are talking about quantities. What is the meaning of quantity which can be measured? For example, characteristics like height, weight, age, income, marks of the students are quantitative in nature. When the collected data of such characteristics are grouped into classes, this type of classification is known as quantitative classification. It can be explained with the help of this example. Frequency distribution of marks in mathematics of 100 students. It can be explained like marks are taken on one axis, frequency is taken on another axis. For example, if we talk about the marks between 0 to 10, that means there is a one student who has scored such a low marks. If we talk about between 60 to 70, there are 19 students who have scored these kind of marks. So, this kind of classification is known by the name of quantitative classification. Now, in conclusion, what we have learnt, we have just talked about classification of data, organization of data, and we have talked about types of classification. Classification is simply arranging the similar kind of data in various groups. We have talked about geographical classification, we have talked about chronological, quantitative, qualitative and so on. So, in next module, we are going to talk about variable. What is the meaning of variable? We are going to focus on types of variable. We are going to talk about various kinds of series, discrete variable, continuous variable, exclusive series, inclusive series, open-ended series, midpoint series and so on. Then we are going to talk about frequency distribution in detail and univariate and bivariate analysis. So, in the meanwhile, keep reading and thank you. Hello students, in this lecture we are going to talk about variable. The term variable is very common. In our real life, we all use this term on daily basis. Now, what is the meaning of variable? It is a characteristic or a phenomena which is capable of being measured and changes its value over time. So, it refers to that quantity which is subject to change and which can be measured by some unit. For example, if we measure the weight of students of 11th class, it would be a variable. It can be either discrete or continuous. Now, the first one is discrete variable. Discrete variable can take only certain values. Its values changes only by finite jumps. It jumps from one value to another but does not take any intermediate values between them. For example, a variable like the number of students in a class for different classes would assume values that are only whole numbers. It cannot take any fractional value like 0.5 because half of a student is absurd. So, it simply takes the full value. For example, if there are 20 students in a class or there may be 15 students in a class. The next one is continuous variable. As the name indicates, continuous itself means in continuity. A continuous variable can take any numerical value. It may take integral values 1, 2, 3, 4 and so on, fractional values 1 by 2, 2 by 3 or 3 by 4 and values that are not exact in their fractions like under root of 2 is equal to be 1.41 and 4 and so on. For example, the height of a student as he or she grows from 90 centimeters to 150 centimeter would take all the values in between them. It can take values that are whole numbers like 90 centimeters, 100 centimeters or 108 centimeters and so on. But it can also include various fractional values too. It may be 90.85 centimeters or 102.34 centimeters and so on that cannot are whole numbers. Now, the next aspect is raw data. A mass of data in its crude form is simply known by the name of raw data. It is an unorganized mass of various items and yet to be organized by investigator. To illustrate, marks obtained by 24 students of class 11th in statistics are, they are given in the form of a table. It may be 20, 42, 59, 99, 25, 32, 31, 18 and so on. By looking at this number of the mass collection of this marks of students, we cannot predict anything, we cannot find any conclusion, we cannot analyze it. On the other hand, if this kind of information or if these kind of marks are presented in a proper manner, that can be used for a statistical analysis or the investigation. So, now we are going to talk about conversion of this raw data into various kind of series. Now, what is the meaning of series? It simply refers to those data which is represented in some order or sequence or arranging data in different classes according to given order. It is known by the name of series. Now, frequency distribution. Frequency distribution is a comprehensive way to classify raw data into quantitative variables. It shows how the different values of a variable like the marks in the mathematics scored by a students are distributed in different classes along with their corresponding class frequencies. Now, what is the meaning of class limit? Each and every class in a frequency distribution is bound by a class limit. Class limit means it is the two ends of a class. The lowest value is known by the name of lower class limit and the highest value of the class is known as upper class limit. For example, the class limit for the class 60 to 70 is the 60 is the lower limit and 70 is the upper limit. Now, its interval or class width is almost the same thing. It is the difference between upper class limit and the lower class limit. For the class 60 to 70, the class interval is 10. That is, upper class limit 70 minus lower class limit 60 comes out to be 10. The class midpoint or class mark is the middle value of any class. It lies halfway between the lower class limit and the upper class limit of a class. For example, if our class interval is from 10 to 20, then midpoint must be 15. How I have calculated 15? By doing the summation of 10 plus 20 comes out to be 30. When I do its half, it comes out to be 15. So, 15 would be my mid value. Now, how to prepare a frequency distribution? We need to answer 4 questions. After answering these 4 questions, it is very easy to prepare a frequency distribution. The first one is how many classes we should have. The second one is what should be the size of each class. Third one is how should we determine the class limits. Fourth is how should we get the frequency for each and every class. Now, we need to elaborate each and every point in detail. The first one is how many classes should we have? Variations in the variable's value are captured by its range. The term range is also very common and it is also being used by each and every layman in their life. But in economics, the term range means it is the difference between the largest and the smallest value of a variable. A large range indicates the value of the variables are widely spread. On the other hand, small range indicates the value of the variables are spread narrowly. Range is the sum of all class intervals. If the class intervals are equal, then range of the product of the number of classes in the class interval of a single class can be calculated as range is equal to number of the classes multiplied by class interval. What should be the size of each class? We can determine the number of classes once if we decide the class interval. That means after deciding a class interval, for example, if a class interval would be of 5 or if it would be of 10, it would become more easier for us to find out the number of total classes. How should we determine the class limit? The value of the upper class limit of a class is obtained by adding the class interval with the value of the lower class limit of that class. And how we decide the lower class limit of the first class? For example, why 0 is the lower class limit for the first class of 0 to 10? It is because we choose the minimum value of the variable as the lower limit of the first class. For example, the upper class limit of the class 20 to 30 is 20 plus 10 is equal to 30, whereas 20 is the lower class limit and 10 is the class interval. This method will be repeated for the other classes as well. Now, we are having 2 different methods for arranging it. The first one is exclusive method. As the name indicates, here we are going to exclude some series. How? The classes by this method are formed in such a way that upper class limit of one class equals the lower class limit of the next class. In this way, the continuity of data is being maintained. That's why the method of classification is most suitable in case of data of continuous variable. Under this method, the upper class limit is excluded, but the lower class limit of the class is included in the interval. In our example, on marks of students, the observation 40 that occurs twice in the raw data is not included in the class 30 to 40, but it will be included in the next class interval, that is 40 to 50. Why is it so? Because we are talking about exclusive series. Why it is being termed as exclusive? Because we have excluded 40 from the previous class interval and we have included 40 in the next class interval. The next one is inclusive series. As the name indicates, now we are going to include that particular series on the same class interval. This method does not exclude the upper class limit in the class interval. It includes the upper class in the same class. Thus, both class limits are part of the same class interval. For example, if we are having income from 800 to 899 and the number of employees are 50, then it is the 50 is not included. That means till 899 our series is completed. Now we are going to start from 900 till 999, then 1000 to 1099. It simply means that we are going to include any persons or the number of employees whose income is between 800 to 899 only, and the persons whose income will increase from 900 to 999, they will come in the next class interval. I think it has become more clear by seeing the difference between exclusive and inclusive series. In exclusive series, the upper limit of a class interval is counted in the next immediate class, or in inclusive series, the upper limit of the class interval is counted in the next same class. Second difference is the upper limit of a class interval and the lower limit of the next class interval is same. For example, it may be like 5 to 10, 10 to 15, 15 to 20 and so on. The second difference of inclusive series is the upper limit of a class interval and the lower limit of the next class interval is different. How? For example, it may be 10 to 14, 15 to 19 and so on. The next type of series is open-end series. What is the meaning of open-end series? In it, lower limit of the first class and upper limit of the last class is not given. Words like below and less than are written in the case of lower limit, and like over and above are written in the case of upper limit. For example, we are having a table. In this table, we are having marks and number of students. In marks, it is written like below 20 and at last it is written as above 50. So that means we are talking about this type of series. The next one is cumulative frequency series. What is the meaning of cumulative frequency series? It is a modification of simple frequency distribution, and it is obtained by successively adding the frequencies of the values of the classes according to a certain law. It can move from top to bottom or from bottom to top. So, it is the example of less than cumulative frequency distribution. Again, we are having a table in which marks are taken from 0 to 10 till 50 to 60, and the number of students are 2, 5, 10, 12, 17 and so on. It can be explained in the form of cumulative frequency. Now, less than 10, that is equal to 2, less than 20 is equal to 7. How I have got this 7? 7 we have got by adding 2 plus 5. In the similar manner, the next, how we have obtained 17? 17 could be obtained by adding the successive unit and so on. This is known by the name of cumulative frequency series. The next series is mid-value series. It is the middle value of each and every class interval. It can be explained by calculating the difference between the two mid-values. Then, the half of difference is subtracted and added to each mid-value to find out the upper and lower limit of the next class. The next one is bivariate frequency distribution. It can be explained by talking about two types of analysis. The first one is univariate distribution and the second one is bivariate. As the name indicates, univariate distribution simply means that we are going to talk about a single variable. On the other hand, if we take two variables simultaneously, that means we are talking about bivariate frequency distribution. It can be explained with the help of this table. This is a kind of table which is given by a production house, in which on one axis we have taken the advertisement expenditure, on other we have taken the increase in the sales. So, we can say like that there are three firms who are using or who are increasing or who are finding the increase in their sales by using more and more in advertisement. So, in this we are making use of two variables simultaneously. So, it is an example of bivariate frequency distribution. Each cell shows the frequency of corresponding row as well as column values. Now, how should we get the frequency for each class? In simple terms, frequency of observation means we have been using the term frequency for so many times, but what does it mean? It simply means that how many times the observation occurs in the raw data. Finding class frequency by telemarking. A tally is put against a class for each student whose marks are included in that class. For example, if the marks obtained by a student are 57, we will put a tally against the class 50 to 60. If the marks are 71, a tally is put against the class 70 to 80. The counting of tally is made easier when four of them are put as four slanting lines and the fifth tally is placed across them as it. Tallies are then counted as group of 5. So, if there are 16 tallies in a class, we put them as 5, 5, 5 and 1 for the sake of convenience. Conclusion. So, at end, what we have learnt in today's lecture, we have talked about organization of data, we have talked about classification of data, which means arranging the similar kind of data in various groups. We have talked about types of classification, which can be chronological, geographical, quantitative and qualitative. We talked about frequency distribution and we discussed the meaning of series, exclusive series, inclusive series and so on. And we also explained the type of analysis univariate as well as bivariate too. So, it can be concluded like this: the data collected from primary and secondary sources are raw or unclassified data. Once the data is collected, the next step is to classify them for the further statistical analysis. Classification brings orders in the data, that's why it is very important. So, in our next lecture, we are going to start with a new chapter, that is chapter number 4, presentation of data. In this chapter, we are going to talk about how data can be presented in the form of tables, polygons, pie charts and different diagrams. So, in the meanwhile, enjoy yourself and keep reading. Thank you.
Hello students, we are here for our video lecture series. Today our topic for discussion is chapter 2 of our book Indian Economic Development. The name of the chapter is Indian Economy during 1950 to 1990. First of all, we should know that what is economy. Actually, economy is a system by which people gets a living. In contrast, economic system is arrangement for the production and distribution of goods and services in a society. And this economic system is divided into three categories. First is capitalistic economy, commonly known as market economy, sometimes also known as free market economy. The second economic system is socialistic economy or centrally planned economy or command economy. And the third economic system is mixed economy. Let's start our chapter with the understanding of all these three types of economies. Firstly, the capitalistic economy. Capitalistic economy is one where all factors of production, that is land, labor, capital and entrepreneur, are owned and controlled by private individuals. Owned by private individuals means that in capitalistic economy there is no role of government, and if there is, then it is very minimum role. Private individuals also suggest that motive in the capitalistic economy is profit maximization instead of social welfare. In this capitalistic economy, market forces, that is demand and supply, plays an important role. Here income distribution is unequal, means there is a wide gap between rich and poor. Consumer is the kingpin of the capitalistic economy. It is the consumer who leads the producer what to produce. Producer produces only those goods which are demanded by consumers, not as directed by the government. There is a greater degree of consumer choice in the capitalistic economy. Buyers and sellers both have a sense of competition. And freedom of enterprise is also an important feature of capitalistic economy. Means entrepreneur is free whatever to produce, but according to the demand of consumer. So these were the features of capitalistic economy. Now move to the socialistic economy. Socialistic economy has features entirely different from capitalistic economy in the sense that here factors of production, land, labor, capital are owned and controlled by the whole community represented by the state. Whereas in capitalistic economy, these factors of production were owned and controlled by the private individuals. In socialistic economy, government plays a major role in the socialistic economy. It is government who is the kingpin in the socialistic economy. Therefore, motive here is also social welfare instead of profit maximization, as was in the case of capitalistic economy. Due to the motive of social welfare, here income distribution is relatively equal. That is, there is no gap between rich and poor. Role of market forces, that is role of demand and supply or price mechanism, is little in the socialistic economy. There is no freedom of choice to the consumer and no choice of enterprise to the firm, because everything is decided by government. But freedom from hunger is guaranteed in this economy. Choice of occupation, that is what to produce by the producer, is determined by some authority on the basis of certain socio-economic goals before the nation, not on the basis of demand made by consumers as in the capitalistic economy. So students, these were the features of socialistic economy. Now the turn of mixed economy. Mixed economy is one which has the features of both capitalistic and socialistic economy. That is, an economy which has both private sector and public sector, where factors of production are partly owned by private individuals and partly owned by government. That economy is known as mixed economy. Now, can you tell what is the nature of Indian economy, whether it is capitalistic economy, socialistic economy or mixed economy? Surely, India has private sector and public sector both. Therefore, undoubtedly, it can be said that India is purely a mixed economy. After discussing economy and its types, our next topic to discuss in this chapter is the 5-year plans of India and its goal. We also study the development policies in different sectors like agriculture, industry and trade from 1950 to 1990 in this chapter. So, let us understand the concept of plan and economic planning. First of all, we should know what is plan. What is the importance of plan? Why plan is necessary? A plan means how the resources should be put to their efficient use. In our day-to-day life also, we make plan for everything. Plan means general goal as well as specific goals to be achieved within a specific period. In India, plans are made for a period of 5 years, generally termed as 5-year plan. India also makes plan to be achieved over a period of 20 years. This 20-year plan, this long-term plan is called as perspective plan. But you should know, these 5 years plan provide basis to the long-term perspective plans. The objective behind long-term perspective plan is 5 years plan. Different goals are set for different 5 years plan in India. There may be a goal of modernization of technology. If we modernize the technology, we have to remove the labor and have to adopt the machinery. But now it will be in conflict with the goal of generation of more employment. As technology hits the labor, technology hits the employment. So, the ultimate responsibility for overall planning is with the Planning Commission, which was set up in March 1950. This Planning Commission set several socio-economic objectives to be achieved under various 5-year plans. But whatever may be the objective of any 5-year plan, the basic goals behind all 5-year plans are categorized into 4 categories. These 4 basic goals are goal of economic growth, goal of modernization, goal of self-reliance and goal of equity. Let us discuss these 4 basic goals of 5-year plans one by one. First is economic growth. It is primary objective of any 5-year plan due to backward and constant state of our Indian economy on the eve of independence. We know at the time of independence we were very backward. We needed economic growth. So, it is the primary objective of any 5-year plan. Growth means increase in country's capacity to produce more of both goods and services within the country. Continuous increase in gross domestic production is a good indicator showing economic growth. Gross domestic production means market value of all the goods and services produced in the country during an accounting year. Gross domestic production is obtained from the different sectors of the economy, namely the agricultural sector, industrial sector and the service sector. Simply we can say whatever we produce in our all the 3 sectors, whether production is in agricultural sector, whether production is in industrial sector and whether production is in service sector, whatever we produce in all these 3 sectors, actually we convert it into their monetary value. And the total of that monetary value is known as gross domestic production. And if our gross domestic production is increasing per year, we can say that we are going towards economic growth. Contribution made by each of these sectors makes up the structural composition of the economy. Apart from this, economic growth may also be in the form of a larger stock of productive capital or a larger size of supporting services like transport and banking, or it may be in the form of increasing efficiency of productive capital and services. If we want that people of India are to enjoy a more rich and varied life, then it is necessary to produce more of both goods and services, that is to increase economic growth. Now, our second goal of 5-year plan is modernization. Modernization was set as an objective of 5-year plan because India's cost of production was high and it could not also compete with international brands in quality, as India lacks technical knowledge. This was the technical knowledge which requires modernization. And we know adoption of new technology is known as modernization. It means those changes in economic activities which make an economy more progressive and modern. Actually, a layman understands that modernization means adoption of technology, but modernization means something more. It does not refer only to the adoption of new technology, rather it means more. Modernization also means changes in our social outlook. It means changes in our cultural outlook, such as we should give importance to women also. We should recognize that women should have the same rights as men. A modern society uses the talents of women in the workplace, like in banks, school, etc. And such a society which uses the talent of women is considered as more prosperous and modern. Now, the third goal of every 5-year plan is self-reliance. Self-reliance means independent of others. It means not depending on external help. It means self-reliance helps in reducing the interference of foreign countries in providing us food supplies, capital investment and debts. The first 7 5-year plans gave importance to self-reliance, which means first 7-year plans focuses on avoiding import of those goods which could be produced in India itself. Fourth goal of every 5-year plan is equity. Equity refers to equality. Equity means that economic development achieved through above 3 goals is shared by all the citizens to promote social justice. It is important to ensure that the benefits of economic prosperity are reaching to the poor sections also as well, instead of being enjoyed only by rich. So, in addition to economic growth, modernization and self-reliance, equity is equally important for the growth of an economy. Equity aims that every Indian should be able to meet his or her basic needs such as food, house, education and health. Students, don't forget, education and health are also our basic needs. It was the early time when basic needs were considered only 3, that were food, clothes and house. But in today's world, education and health are also our basic needs. Equity also aims at reducing inequality in the distribution of wealth. So, all this was about goals of 5-year plans. This all was for today. Let's revise what we have done today. We started our chapter with the term economy. Simultaneously, we compared the economy with the term economic system. Then we discussed 3 types of economic systems, namely capitalistic economy, socialistic economy and mixed economy. Next, we discussed the term plan and importance of plan. And lastly, today we did 4 basic objectives behind each 5-year plan, namely basic goal of economic growth, basic goal of self-reliance, basic goal of modernization and basic goal of equity. The rest we will do in our next lecture. Thanks for today.
Welcome students. Today we are going to start with 11th class chapter 4, that is recording of transaction part 2. In the previous chapter number 3, which was part 1 for this recording of transaction, we have studied till journal and ledger. When the business is very small, we record in journal, but as the business expands, more and more transaction means we have to divide it into special journals, which means that specific transaction of a similar type are recorded in a separate journal, like credit purchase, credit sales, credit purchase return, credit sales return and cash entries. These are all recorded in their specific journals. These are also called day book or subsidiary books. If any transaction which is not in any specific journal, then it will be recorded in journal proper. For example, credit purchase of asset, rectification entries, etc. Now, these special journals are very economical. Now, how many type of special purpose books are there? First, cash book, which record all the cash entries. Then purchase book, which record all the credit purchase entries. Then sales book, which record all the credit sales entries. Sales return, credit sale return, purchase return, credit purchase return, and in the last, journal proper, those entries which do not find any place in the above mentioned books are recorded in journal proper. As I have told you, rectification entries and adjustment entries. Now, let us discuss in detail all these books, starting with cash book first. All the transactions relating to cash receipt and payment, whether they are related to goods or they are related to assets or any expense, anything which is related to cash will be recorded in this book. So, cash book serves the purpose of journal as well as ledger. Ledger means cash account. There are three types of cash book. First, single column cash book, in which there is only one column, that is cash column. Next, double column cash book, in which we are having two columns, cash as well as bank. And the next third type of book is petty cash book, in which we record all the petty expenses, small expenses. Now, let us discuss the single column cash book in detail. It starts with the debit side, and in the first point we write opening balance of cash, because it is just a single column cash book. So, we record opening balance of cash, and then we record all the receipts of cash, whether it is by cash sale of goods, whether it is by cash sale of furniture. All the things in which we receive cash are recorded on the debit side, and on the credit side all the payments, whether it is related to goods, expenses, assets or anything, all these payments which are related to cash will be recorded on the credit side, and then in the end we finally arrive at the closing balance of cash. You know, debit will always be more in cash and credit will be less or equal to debit. You cannot have minus balance of cash, right? If you are having money, only then you can spend it. Now, all these entries are posted in their respective accounts also. For example, if we have received cash from Sonu, then it will be recorded in the Sonu account also on the right hand side, and we will write by cash, because when we receive cash we will write in the cash book on debit side, to Sonu, amount received. So, in the Sonu account it will be on the right hand side by cash. As you know, all the entries have two aspects, one debit and one credit. This was discussed in our previous classes. Next, similarly, any payment made on the credit side of the cash book. For example, if we are purchasing stationery, then we will write on the right hand side, credit side, buy stationery, and this will be recorded in the stationery account left side, that is debit side, as to cash. So, in stationery account debit side, in cash account credit side, both aspects are there, right, debit and credit, double entry system, Lucas Pacioli. I hope you remember all these things. Now, coming to the next, double column cash book. There are two columns, as the name suggests, double column. There are two columns, one of cash and one of bank. Debit side starts with opening balance of both now, because there are two columns. So, cash as well as bank, and then all the receipts of cash in cash column and the receipts of bank in bank column. Similar treatment for the credit side also. If we are paying anything in cash, it will be recorded on the credit side cash column, and if the payment is being made by check, it will be recorded in the bank account credit side, right. When all the receipts and all the payments of cash in cash column and bank in bank column are recorded, then in the end we arrive at the closing balance of cash as well as bank. Now, one thing to note here is cash is always debit balance, that is on the credit side, and bank account can be debit balance or credit balance, because in case you have issued more checks, then it can be a negative balance, that is overdraft. We will be coming to this in our next discussion also. Now, let us discuss something about bank account. Now, generally this is a current account, because a business opens a current account in the bank. No interest is given on this account. Instead, some service charges by the bank are made, like incidental charges, you can say. They can take some charges from you for opening the account. Okay. For depositing the money, pay-in slips are used. You can write the amount to be deposited in cash or the checks which you want to deposit in the account. Then the bank gives you a checkbook for withdrawal of the money. Account pay check means you can deposit in that particular person account only. Now, what is a cross check? When we put two parallel lines on the face of the check, it is called cross check. Now, this crossing can be of two types. First, as I have told you, account pay, which can be deposited in the account only, but there can be special crossing also. Within those parallel lines, if you have written the name of the bank, then it can be deposited only in that particular bank, that is called special crossing. Now, suppose I give you a check with two lines on it. You can put this check in your account in any bank, but if I put a special crossing like SBI account, so you can put this check in only and only SBI account and nowhere else, because I have put a special crossing. So, this is the difference. Okay. Now, let us talk something about contra entries. When we deposit cash or withdraw the cash, it is effected on both these sides of the cash book. Take an example. If I am receiving cash from the bank is going down on the credit side and the cash is increasing on the debit side. So, in the same cash book there are two effects, one on the debit, one on the credit. So, this is called a contra entry. We write a capital letter C in the inverted comma to signify this contra entry, and this C inverted comma is written in the ledger folio column, so that we are able to know that this entry is going to affect both the sides. Now, what is overdraft? As I have told you, cash withdrawn can never be more, but you can withdraw from bank more. So, the balance will be negative. This facility is available in current account only, that is for the business. So, if the businessman is withdrawing more than what it is in his account, then it is a case of bank overdraft. Okay. Now, there is one very important point, check in hand. Suppose I receive the check today and I do not deposit it on the same day, then I will have to take it in cash. In the next day, when I will deposit this check, it will be a contra entry. Cash will be going out, that is those checks in hand will be going out, and on the debit side bank account will be increasing. So, that makes it a contra entry. Although this concept is not used very popularly, but this is there in the theory part. So, we must know what is check in hand. As I told you, while balancing the cash book, cash balance will never be credit, because payments can never exceed the available cash, but that is not true for bank balance because there can be overdraft. Now, what are the source document for receipts and payment? The source document for receipt is the receipt issued by cashier, whereas for the payments we have invoices, bills, etc. issued by the suppliers. All these are called vouchers. These vouchers are serially numbered and kept in a separate file for future reference and verification. Let us also think about a very important point, dishonor of a check and the bank charges. Dishonor of a check means bank will debit and cash book will credit. I am trying to say, in the bank account it will be debited in the bank, and in our cash book bank column it will be on the credit side. And similarly, bank charges, interest, commission, etc. charged by the bank will have the same effect, that is debited in the bank and credited in cash book bank column. Let us take few examples on double column cash book. Opening balance, cash and bank will come on the debit side. If we purchase the goods, it will come on the credit side. If we sell the goods in cash, it will be on the credit side of cash column. If the machinery is purchased by check, it will be on the credit side bank column. Similarly, if we purchase stationery in cash, it will be on the credit side cash column, and when we withdraw cash from the bank, it will be a contra entry, debit in cash, credit in bank, right. And when we pay rent by check, it will be in the credit side of the bank column of cash book, credit side, because we are paying by check, and the closing balance of cash and bank will be on the credit side by balance carried down on the credit side, because if debit side is more, the balance will always come on the credit side, although it is a debit balance, because debit is more, so balance is debit. Let us check our understanding what we have understood till now. Trade discount is recorded in which book? Yes, purchase book, and cash discount is recorded in cash book. Goods returned from customer are recorded in not purchase return, it is sales return, because we are getting from customer sales return. And overdraft means which balance in cash book? Negative balance in cash book. Cash book does not record blank transactions. Which transactions are not recorded in cash book? Yes, credit transactions are not recorded. And if assets are sold on credit, they are recorded in which book? Yes, right. Oh yes, it is journal proper. In double column cash book, there are two columns. Yes, which columns? Cash and bank. Next, purchase book records only which transaction? Credit purchase of goods in trade, right? Cash book serves both purpose of blank and blank. Yes, journal and ledger, because we record the entries journal and there is no need to maintain cash and bank account. So, it works as a ledger also. Next, ledger is a blank book. Yes, it is a main book. Next, any transaction recorded on both sides of cash book is dash entry, contra entry. Next, credit purchase of machine will be recorded in yes, journal proper. So, students, today we have discussed journals and then we have told you when the business is big, we refer to specific journals like purchase book, sales book, purchase return, sales return and whatever remains in journal proper. And then we discussed about three types of cash book: single column, double column and petty cash book, which will be discussed in the next session along with purchase book, sales book, purchase return, sale return and journal proper. All these are going to be discussed in our next session. So, till then, happy reading. Thank you.
Electricity and electronics have a very special role in today's world. Various types of appliances that we use in our homes work on electricity. Modern appliances used for domestic purposes are operated and controlled electronically. In modern factories, electronically operated devices control and manipulate production. Television and video players are commonly used machines in urban homes. We cannot think about life without the help of electronic devices. Even in remote areas, TVs and radios are common. In our homes, we use telephones for making local and distant calls. Transport systems like railway trains depend upon electronic instruments and signaling devices for correct operation. The weather reports that we read in newspapers and see on television are compiled by various types of electrical and electronic instruments. In modern scientific laboratories, you will see many scientific devices. Computers are amongst the essential items of any laboratory. Instruments used for various measurements use sophisticated apparatus. Precision measurement of scientific parameters is possible with the help of electronic instruments. In a scientific laboratory, you may have seen instruments which display bright, wave-like patterns on a screen. An instrument called the cathode ray oscilloscope is one of the most important instruments ever to be developed. Various types of waveforms that appear on the screen are measured and interpreted by scientific personnel working in the laboratory. Various types of waveforms that appear on the screen are measured and interpreted by scientific personnel working in the laboratory. Detailed investigation and measurement is possible with this instrument. It is a very versatile piece of equipment. The cathode ray oscilloscope can be used to measure potential difference or to show in the form of a graph on a screen how a potential difference varies with time. The cathode ray tube is an important device which led to the development of television, radar, and a wide range of electronic instruments which display electrical signals. In your home TV set, the images that you see on your screen are produced by a cathode ray tube placed inside the cabinet. The heart of every oscilloscope is a cathode ray tube which changes electrical energy into light. Every oscilloscope has a cathode ray tube which we see on the screen in an open form. It has three parts. Number 1, an electron gun for producing a narrow beam of high-speed electrons, which is also known as the cathode ray, in an evacuated glass tube. Number 2, a beam deflection system, which can be electrostatic or magnetic. And number 3, a fluorescent screen at the end of the tube, which emits light where the beam falls on it. The main part of the oscilloscope is the cathode ray tube. The tube has an electron gun, which generates a beam of electrons. The screen at the end of the tube is coated with fluorescent material, so that a bright spot of light is produced where the end of the electron beam strikes it. The brightness of the spot depends on the rate at which the electrons strike the screen. Making the grid less negative makes the spot brighter. To focus the beam and to make a small clear spot on the screen, the potential difference between the two anodes is altered. The two anodes act as an electronic lens. For deflecting the electron beam, two sets of deflecting plates are used. The Y plates deflect the spot vertically, and the X plates deflect it horizontally. A potential difference between the Y plates bends the electron beam. The spot on the screen moves up or down. A straight line is seen because the screen continues to glow for a short length of time after the electron beam has moved on. The length of the trace is a measure of the maximum potential difference. If an alternating potential difference from the mains is applied to the Y plates, the spot moves up and down 50 times a second, making a straight line trace. If the potential difference across the X plates is increased steadily, the spot moves across the screen at a constant speed. This is done by applying a potential difference which increases smoothly and then suddenly decreases. This is called a sawtooth potential difference. On the sweep, the spot moves at a constant speed across the screen to the right, and then the spot moves quickly back to the left of the screen. When a signal is applied to the Y plates, the time base spreads it out along the X-axis, so that the variation of the signal with time can be seen.
An oscilloscope is one of the most important instruments to be used in an electronics laboratory. It's used mainly as a graph plotter, or in other words, whatever voltage that we apply to its input, we can study the variation in this voltage or the waveform of the voltage. Now, it's not only an electrical voltage that we can study with an oscilloscope, non-electrical effects can also be studied with it. Only we have to convert the non-electrical phenomenon into a suitable electric voltage with a transducer. For instance, as I am talking, the sound wave get converted into suitable electric voltage with this microphone, and we can observe the variation in the electrical voltage with this oscilloscope. Similarly, in the field of medical science, the heartbeats of a patient can be converted with a suitable transducer into electrical pulses, which can be observed with an oscilloscope. Now, we shall consider a typical oscilloscope and try to see how we can set it up and make some simple measurements with it. In order to use the oscilloscope, the first thing we do is plug it into the mains and switch the mains power on. Then I switch on the power switch on the oscilloscope, and it takes a little while for the intensity to come up. Then we turn the intensity up so that the beam becomes visible. It may be necessary to adjust the focus control here to get a sharp beam. We can use this position control to move the beam up and down and set it at a convenient location such as this. Depending on the input voltage expected, we adjust the position of this vertical attenuator to set it at any convenient location. Right now I've set this at 1 volts per division, which corresponds to 1 volts of electrical voltage per division on the oscilloscope face. This means that each division here corresponds to 1 volts of electrical signal applied at the input terminal. The other important aspect that we need to consider is the horizontal scale or the time scale. I can adjust the position of the beam with this control so as to make it start at a convenient location such as this. Then I can also adjust the amount of time per division on the time scale. For this purpose, we use this knob, which is for the time-based control. We can set its position conveniently so as to get an appropriate value of times per division on the oscilloscope face. Right now I'm setting it at 1 millisecond per division. This is the input connector where we apply the input voltage to be monitored on the oscilloscope. We use this probe, which has a connector which goes into this input terminal like this. Then we use this probe tip to probe whatever voltage we want to measure. Now, I have here for illustration, here is a power supply which is giving out DC voltages at several values, and we would want to measure one of them, typically this. So I connect the probe to this terminal and the beam shifts to its new position here, which is shifted from the original position by 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5 volts. So the voltage that I am applying here is measured to be 5 volts. In order to illustrate a typical AC voltage measurement, we have used this audio signal generator, which can give out a convenient audio frequency with these knobs and a suitable voltage with these knobs. The outputs are available in the sinusoidal form on these terminals or in the square form on these two terminals. We connect the probe to the sinusoidal output terminal of this audio signal generator, and the sine wave appears on the oscilloscope face here. We observe that this wave has an amplitude of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6 volts from peak to peak, which is the amplitude of the waveform that we are giving from the audio signal generator. We can also measure the frequency of this signal. We observe that one complete wave from here to here has one complete division of the oscilloscope phase, which corresponds to 1 millisecond, which is the period of this waveform. In other words, the frequency of this wave is 1 kilohertz. Now we illustrate another waveform, which is a square waveform, which is also available as an output from this audio generator. I switch from sine to square, and I put the probe from the sinusoidal output terminals to the square output terminals here, and this is the output square waveform which is visible on the oscilloscope phase.
You should study the function of the controls of the cathode ray oscilloscope, or CRO, thoroughly before you start conducting experiments with it. The focus. This controls the potential difference between the two anodes. Brightness. This makes the grid more or less negative. XY shift. This varies the number of volts across the deflecting plates, so that the spot can be zeroed on the center of the screen. Time-based switch. This alters the length of the time. The spot takes time to move across the screen. Amplifier. This magnifies the signal on the Y plates so that a small potential difference makes the spot move a large distance. When you are performing experiments with the CRO, you should note some practical points carefully and observe certain precautions. The brightness or intensity control, which is usually the on-off switch as well, should be as low as possible. When there is a spot on the screen burn occurs and the phosphor may be damaged. If possible, it is best to defocus the spot or draw it into a line running the time base. When preparing the CRO for use, set the brilliance, focus, XY shift control to their mid positions. The time base and Y amplifier gain controls can then be adjusted to suit the input. Two frequencies can be compared from the figures appearing on the screen of the CRO.
Sir, what are the precautions needed when we are operating a CRO?
First is we must check the power supply. Here we are giving the power supply single phase, that is 230 volts, and 50 hertz main supply, that is the domestic supply. So we have to apply that much voltage to give the power to this one. And that socket must be earthed such that there is no shock hazard on this CRO, because this body and all these terminals are being earthed, so there must be earth terminal on the socket.
So why do we use this CRO instead of various other instruments like voltmeter?
The difference, the voltmeter is this VTM or any galvanometer type voltmeter, that when you are measuring the AC signal, then in that case AC signal is converted into the DC signal, and then that is calibrated in terms of the RMS values. And in this case here, this is the advantage, we can display the signal, so we can measure the peak to peak value. So there are less chances of error, or you can say this is more accurate instrument for the measurement of peak to peak voltage of the CRO.
Sir, what is peak to peak value?
If you see the waveform, then if you measure the vertical distance between the positive maximum point and the negative maximum point, this will be the peak to peak value of the voltage. Now, if you divide by the factor of 2, then it will be the maximum value of the signal.
So what do you mean by RMS voltage?
In this varying signal, the voltage is varying with respect to time. So, RMS value is the root mean square value of the signal. So, in this case, if you know the maximum value of the voltage, that is Vm, peak voltage, then you can find out the RMS value by dividing a factor of 1 by root 2 to the Vm.
We have seen in this film the functions of a cathode ray oscilloscope and its use. The CRO is used mainly to display the waveform applied to its input. The heart of the CRO is the cathode ray tube. The cathode ray tube changes electrical energy into light signals. The cathode ray oscilloscope can be used to measure voltage. The CRO can display waveforms. The frequency of the waveform can be found by using a CRO. The CRO can be used to compare two frequencies. The CRO is an essential instrument in any scientific laboratory.
A familiar sight, the star-studded night sky. These millions of stars in the night sky are but a tiny part of what is known as the universe, whose size and limits are unknown. Our Earth, too, is a member of this universe. The universe comprises billions of stars, and clusters of these stars are known as galaxies. Scientists estimate that there are 10 billion such galaxies in the universe. Like a tiny grain of sand on a vast sandy beach, the Earth is located on the outer fringes of a galaxy that has over 100,000 million stars and is known as the Milky Way system. This galaxy resembles a giant Catherine wheel that is slowly spinning on its axis. This is the planet Earth. The brightest object in our solar system is the Sun. It is the center of our solar system. The solar system is a community of bodies which include asteroids, comets, and the 9 known planets. All these bodies constantly revolve around the Sun, the only star in our solar system. The planets and their moons do not radiate any light of their own, but shine by the light they reflect from the Sun. The Sun contains 99% of the mass of the entire solar system, which is mostly empty space. It is the massive gravitational pull of the Sun that guides the planets and the other bodies around itself. Compared to the Sun, the Earth is a mere dwarf, which can be accommodated 1.3 million times in the Sun's volume. This tiny section of the Sun's surface will give us an idea of its size in comparison with the Earth and the other known planets, which are Mercury, the smallest of the planets and the one nearest to the Sun; Venus, surrounded by impenetrable clouds; the Earth, our own blue planet; Mars, the red planet; Jupiter, the largest and with its gaseous layers, the heaviest; Saturn, recognizable by its encircling rings; Uranus; Neptune, discovered in the middle of the 19th century; and lastly, Pluto, the farthest from the Sun, with a temperature of minus 230 degrees Celsius, the coldest of them all. In addition to this, hundreds of thousands of rocky or metal objects called asteroids also revolve around the Sun, where they form an asteroid belt between the planets Mars and Jupiter. The asteroids, which are irregularly shaped, are usually less than a kilometer in diameter. The origin of the universe has always been a puzzle. Astronomers now favor the Big Bang theory, according to which the universe began some 15 billion years ago with a colossal explosion. At the time of the Big Bang, all the material in the universe was condensed into a superatom. The explosion ripped it apart and scattered dust and gases in every direction. Some 4.5 billion years ago, the spinning cloud of dust and gas contracted to form a star, that is, the Sun and a family of 9 planets. What finally emerged was the highly ordered structure of our solar system. The size of the solar system is immense, and it is only by analogy that we can begin to appreciate the staggering distances. If we were to journey from the Sun to the outermost planet, Pluto, at a speed of say 1,000 kilometers an hour, it would take us over 600 years to reach our destination. According to the Big Bang Theory, the newly born Earth, which is an accumulation of debris, heated up as its interior compacted due to force of gravity and heat from radioactive elements within it. As the heat increased, the Earth's rocky materials melted and began to separate. The lighter material floated upwards and cooled into a thin layer of partially melted rock to form the crust. Heavier elements like iron and nickel sank towards the Earth's center to form a core of iron-rich matter. While the Earth's structure was developing, gases were released from the interior. These gases also contained water that had been locked up in the minerals. These gases mixed together, cooled, and condensed into clouds that covered the entire planet. The water vapor in this atmosphere cooled and condensed and fell as heavy rainfall, filling up the basins in the Earth's crust, thus forming a primitive ocean that covered most of the Earth's surface. More than 3.5 billion years ago, the blue-green algae had appeared in the oceans, and it had the ability to use the energy from sunlight in a process known as photosynthesis. It used this energy to convert carbon dioxide from the seawater to carbon for food. Oxygen was released as a byproduct. By about 2 billion years ago, the oxygen expelled by the primitive organisms began to accumulate in the atmosphere, where it replaced carbon dioxide as the most abundant gas. Some of this oxygen was converted into ozone, which forms a layer in the atmosphere around the Earth. The layer of ozone screened the Earth from the harmful ultraviolet radiations of the sun. This made the surface waters of the Earth safe for the emergence of more sophisticated life forms. The Earth constantly revolves around the Sun in a path called an orbit. The notice that everything around us is quite still. The reason we do not feel this motion is because the Earth's motion is completely steady. And while we are moving, everything around us too is moving at the same speed. This is the reason why everything around us looks still. It is like traveling in a train or a bus. It is only when we look outside and see things whiz past us that we realize that we are moving. The Earth always spins the same way, turning eastwards all the time. If we look down the North Pole, we would notice that the Earth turns in an anti-clockwise direction. It is because of this easterly rotation that we see the sun coming up in the east every day and going down in the west. One rotation, a complete turn, takes approximately 24 hours, causing periods of light and darkness we call day and night. As the Earth orbits the Sun, the one half facing the Sun is lit by it, and this gives us daylight. The part of the Earth facing away from the Sun is in darkness, and it is the night side. As it journeys through space, our tiny planet has a constant companion, the Moon. Other planets too have moons whirling around them, but the Earth's moon is quite large compared to the Earth. The moon is the brightest object in the night sky. But what causes it to change its shape? Why does it wax and wane? The moon has no light of its own, but reflects the light of the sun. The moon's phases are simply what we on Earth can see of this reflected sunlight at different times during its orbit around the Earth. Let us see how this works. When the moon lies between the Earth and the sun, no sunlight falls on the side of the moon facing the Earth. It is dark and invisible. It is called the new moon. As the moon proceeds along its orbit of the Earth, a growing or waxing crescent of reflected sunlight illuminates its eastern edge. At the first quarter, just a week after the new moon, half the moon's illuminated hemisphere is visible from the Earth. This portion waxes or grows until the moon's face is fully illuminated. The moon now begins to wane, going through its phases in reverse. The moon takes altogether 29.5 days to go from one full moon to the next. This 29.5-day cycle is called a lunar month. By the end of the lunar month, the moon is back in its original position relative to the Earth and the sun. As the planets and their satellites orbit the sun, they cast cone-shaped shadows on each other. When one body casts its shadow on another, the event is called an eclipse. Let us see how this comes about. The moon revolves around the Earth, and both these bodies revolve around the sun. As often as 3 times in a year, always at the time of full moon, the moon and the sun line up with the Earth between them. moves briefly through all or part of the Earth's shadow, which is large enough to cover the moon. This is known as a lunar eclipse and can be seen from the Earth anywhere where the moon has risen. Two to 5 times a year, the Earth and the Sun line up with the moon between them. And for a while, the moon's shadow falls on the Earth, causing an eclipse of the Sun. A total eclipse of the Sun is seen as total only along a narrow strip where the moon's deep shadow, called the umbra, falls. The lighter shadow around the darker umbra is known as the penumbra. Viewed from the Earth, this is what a solar eclipse looks like. In ancient times and even today, many people find eclipses frightening. But eclipses are nothing but the regular and predictable events in the workings of our solar system. The Earth's orbit around the Sun is not perfectly round, but elliptical or oval. It is because of this, the Earth is closer to the Sun sometimes than others. Because the Earth is tilted at an angle, periods of daylight and darkness and the angle of the Sun's rays falling on the Earth vary at different latitudes throughout the year. Seasonal changes are due in part because of this tilt. In the summer, that is around June, the northern half of the Earth is tilted towards the Sun, giving it summer, while the south has winter. Yet, when the Earth travels round to the far side of the Sun, it is the south that is tilted towards the Sun, and the seasons reverse. The northern hemisphere has winter, and the southern hemisphere has summer. The Sun is not only the center of our solar system, but our very existence. The heat and light from the Sun are the reasons why life exists on Earth. The temperature on the Sun's surface is about 6,000 degrees Celsius. Entirely composed of hydrogen, it is a vast furnace at whose center, every second, over 4 million tons of hydrogen is fused. The hydrogen nuclei fuse to form helium and release tremendous amounts of energy in the process. Formed from the dust of ancient stars, our planet is unique, for based on information available at present, life does not seem to exist on any other celestial body except the Earth. This has been possible due to a number of factors. The Earth has water in all the three forms: liquid, solid, and as gas. It has a breathable atmosphere of oxygen. It has the right temperature for life to exist. The thin blanket of its atmosphere screens off most of the harmful radiations of the Sun. This sphere of rock, the planet Earth on which we live, is white hot and molten beneath the crust. Volcanoes still spew molten rock onto its surface. "30 kilometers above its surface, the air is too thin and cold for survival. Yet, between its surface and the vacuum of space is a fragile miracle, the biosphere, the zone of life. Here, life forms, however diverse, are all intricately linked together in an eternal dance of life."
It is believed that this Earth came into existence after a Big Bang. Although the Earth is a few million years old, but the trauma of existence continues to reflect itself in every human being. The transition of every human being may be from the womb to the tomb, but this journey by no means is without pain, sorrow, joy, and of course surprise. These contradictory experiences can be best seen in the case of adolescence. The change from a dependent infant to a young adult who is trying to find his bearings both on the physical as well as on an emotional plane can be an exasperating experience. Parents and teachers of these young adults would bear testimony to the trauma of youth.
They start questioning authority. They are not obedient to any rules and regulations of the school, and they have to be convinced about it. Now suddenly they feel that everything has a rationale, and unless you argue with them, unless you convince them rationally, they will not obey.
Arguments do happen, especially on the matter of talking to boys, on being a bit too frank and blunt, and like I say I'm old enough to manage, and they think I'm not old enough to do.
She's too sensitive, gets hurt easily. Now what is the alternatives we have to treat her? I mean to interact with her. Should we ignore her? Should we turn around and say that she'll grow out of it?
I'm finding it very difficult to handle a boy at this age, because my daughter was not all that difficult in that age of adolescence, what my son is.
Adolescence, a phase of bewilderment and anxiety. Adolescents. What are their problems?
Adolescents are young people who have just entered their teens, and they are beginning to sense a feeling of being grown up. They want to be in charge of their lives. They want to be independent. They want to take decisions. And yet they're very misunderstood, because the family, the teachers, and the others are not willing to treat them as adults. They're treating them as a child. So the adolescent is caught between being a child and being an adult at different points of time. So he has doubts about his own self-identity.
In the transition to the adolescence, a questioning attitude starts. They are curious. They would like to know everything. They would like to be convinced of what is being told to them. So earlier you could dictate to the children and tell them, well, these things have to be done. But the changes we see nowadays is, it's not that they don't do it. If you're able to convince them logically, rationally, and tell them the outcome, the consequences, they would listen.
The most common problems adolescents have is communication with their parents. They feel the parents are not able to understand them. They feel they are not able to sympathize with them. They feel that very often parents are closed on about issues which are so important for the adolescent. And also the traditional Indian family household has a structure which is rather
turbulence is attributed to certain changes, physical, social, and emotional. These are natural and need not be misunderstood. There is nothing to be fearful of these changes. The physical changes in the girls are increase in height, development of breast buds, onset of menstrual cycle. The physical changes in the boys are increase in height and muscle mass, growth of testes and penis, growth of facial and body hair, change of voice. Another fact of life is that the growth process varies from person to person. The pace of growth may vary from fast to slow, respectively.
One fine day I just realized, and I really thought I was ill, so there was something wrong with me. But then at that time my mother was very helpful. She explained things to me that there is nothing, it's just a part of growing up. You'll learn to get used to things. But it was at that point, for that initial 5-6 months, I did feel that it was an unnecessary trauma, and I don't know, and then immediately one thing, that I suddenly began to realize, became conscious of myself.
Most of the things which happen in this age group are 80%, 90% usually normal. I think these boys or girls should be allowed to come and discuss about these things more freely so that they don't have any psychological strain. The most common problem is that they are psychologically under depression. Any sexual problem which comes across, or any literature which they read in a magazine but they don't have the proper knowledge or proper details of the thing, they get unnecessarily worried, and that kind of mental strain which they cannot discuss with anyone continuously give them more of these symptoms. Under mental stress they give more discharges, and this I will stress that they should not be fearful about the discharges, even about the menstrual patterns.
The adolescent should be informed in a scientific, authentic manner. He should be told about the changes that are happening to him or her. And he should also be, or she should also be made aware of the changes to be expected, what these changes are for, and how to cope with them. Otherwise, they may resort to all kinds of trash literature for informing themselves about, or look at magazines which do not provide proper information, and they just leave you titillated but do not get informed. So they are certainly at a loss to know what is happening towards them. So the school, the parents, the adults, the counselors all have a role in informing the adult about what to expect and how to handle what is happening to him or to her.
Are you worried about your children? Are they spending a lot of time on the phone? Are they insisting on going out with their peers? Are your boys spending a lot of time on the roadside, indulging in e-teasing? Do they go out to parties and often come late?
When my daughter was in a class 10, and she, we have her school is very nearby to our house, and we have, she was very popular, and she had friends on and off and coming, both boys and girls, So many times the boys would like to come and sit and, would like to chat around. And we are both working, working parents. So we are normally not around during the afternoon hours. So when it happened for about couple of weeks, that her friends had come, and used to come. So our neighbors would always say she's very popular, she has very handsome friends, boys around her. And I had to tell her that, Sneha, you have to be careful, you are alone in the home, all these people come, they all know that we are not home, so how are you going to take care of you? And like that it went on for a while, and I think for about 6 months we were kind of exchanges, were made, and then finally made her understand that she is going to be alone in the house, and she has a brother and to look after, and she has to look after herself and what everything means. And I think she took it in a very right sense.
Some of the boys, when they came, when I would walk into the house, they won't get up and say, hello uncle, how are you? So I had to explain to both of them, when you are having friendships, then let it be a family friends. And once you are having family friends, then the acceptability and the different kind of an environment will be created. But if boys are going to come and meet you only, then that will be a problem.
My mother doesn't like it when he comes when there's nobody around, mainly because she thinks the neighbors, they make all sorts of stories about you visiting a guy, they see you around with a guy, they make all sorts of stories. But first of all, she doesn't like that. Then she says, if you're not doing anything wrong, why should he visit you when I'm not around? So, I mean, he doesn't, she just generally told me to be careful because she told me not to trust men as such. And then, that is all. And she told me just to be careful with him unless you're not sure of what you're doing. But now, since I know him for very long and my parents know what sort of relationship we have, now it just doesn't matter anymore because she knows that she can trust me and I can trust myself.
It would be appropriate to say that there is a clash of values between the parents and the adolescent. Now, for one, he starts rejecting the parental values, he starts questioning them, sometimes even challenging those values as whether they are appropriate or not. This may be partly because he is overwhelmed by the peers and their influence on him, and he may also be rejecting the parental values because he thinks he knows another set of values which are suitable for him, which he should be adopting. So parental rejection is usually treated as sensitivity on the part of the adolescent toward the parent, because the adolescent questions, challenges, and often argues and debates with the parents.
All these developments can be classified under the head of emotional changes. These changes are very sensitive and react strongly to events, contradictory feelings towards persons, antagonistic to authority, development of new attitudes, defensive about own actions.
Now, the second type of problem they usually have is heterosexual in nature. They are interested in young girls, they are interested in young boys, they want to spend time with them. They are also exposed to media which provides them a lot of exposure and stimulates them sexually. And yet they do not know how to go about it in their own personal lives. They feel inadequate, or sometimes they commit errors. They don't know whom to share it with or how to get information to take care of themselves. So a whole host of problems come. Now, typically what happens when an adolescent faces problems, he either withdraws or is unable to concentrate on his studies. This is a common problem that we have encountered. Or he totally goes away from the home and the control of the parents onto an entirely different area, which can be sometimes unfortunate. So I think informing the adolescent, supporting
through our curriculum, through our programs by which we are doing, where all children play together, they lift heavy furniture together, they do meal planning together, they cook together. I mean, all activities are geared towards togetherness and equality. And if by the adolescents they are able to respect girls as individuals, and truly the ideas which the ideas are based on an equal basis, then I think all earlier problems which relate to Eve teasing and narrow-minded approaches can be taken care of, and the child who comes into adulthood is well prepared to have full respect and understanding for a better partner, for a better life.
Certain social traditions, like early marriages, create psychological and physical problems, as the girls and boys are not prepared for it.
In the married girls who become pregnant early, again their genital organs are not well developed, so their pregnancies can end up with abortions or even premature deliveries. And again there can be abnormal behavior of the uterus during labor, and the child development also is poor. There are low birth weight with babies.
They may also have certain harmful diseases.
The common diseases which are put in this group are gonorrhea, syphilis, lymphogranuloma venereum, lymphogranuloma inguinale, genital warts, herpes genitalis, then trichomonal vaginitis, and candidiasis, then condylomata acuminata, AIDS, and there are many others which can be put under this heading. But the most common ones were gonorrhea and syphilis in the past days, and now in day-to-day practice we see trichomonal vaginitis as a very common disease.
If the right information is not imparted, it can weaken the entire process of development, which can lead to lifelong problems. Whereas, with the right guidance and support, the process of growing up can be made easy, more natural, beautiful, and far more enjoyable.
व्यक्ति जैसे अपने आप को देखते हैं, वही उनके व्यवहार में दिखाई देता है। कुछ किसी भी प्रकार के परिणाम मिलने पर खुश रहते हैं और कुछ अनिश्चित और विश्वास रहित होने के कारण जीवन की चुनौतियों का सामना नहीं कर पाते तथा संपूर्ण व सुखी जीवन से ऐसे व्यक्ति वंचित रह जाते हैं।
चलो
भाई टैप के हाथ में फाउल क्या भाई टैप हाथ में क्या है हाथ में क्या है भाई मुझे पता है भाई हाथ में लगा भाई फाउल है करे सुनील जब देखो लड़ता रहता है
हाँ यार जब किसी से लड़ता रहता है
मुझे नहीं पता कि हर कोई मुझसे ही क्यों लड़ता रहता है। क्या हमेशा मेरी ही गलती होती है? मैं ये समझ नहीं पा रहा कि कोई मुझे समझने की कोशिश क्यों नहीं कर रहा।
मैंने तो इतनी मेहनत की थी फिर भी पता नहीं नंबर क्यों नहीं आए।
अरे चिंता मत कर यार, मेरे भी तो कम मार्क्स आए हैं। इस बार ना सही अगले बार सही मार्क्स ले आएंगे।
मनोवैज्ञानिकों का विश्वास है कि जिन व्यक्तियों में स्वयं का ज्ञान अर्थात अपने गुणों, क्षमताओं व कमियों की जानकारी नहीं होती, उनमें आत्मविश्वास की कमी होती है। अपने गुणों की जानकारी न होने के कारण वो अपनी प्रतिभाओं का प्रयोग नहीं कर पाते और वो असंतुष्ट रहते हैं। इस तरह की समस्याएं किशोरावस्था में और भी उग्र हो जाती हैं, क्योंकि इस स्तर पर किशोरों में कई प्रकार के शारीरिक, मानसिक व मनोवैज्ञानिक परिवर्तन तेजी से होते हैं, जिन्हें वो समझ नहीं पाते तथा उनकी अपने बारे में अनिश्चितता और भी बढ़ जाती है और उनकी पहले बनी हुई धारणाओं और विश्वास को और भी कम कर देती है। विद्यालय के कार्यक्रम विद्यार्थियों में स्वयं के बारे में समझ तथा ज्ञान की वृद्धि में सहायक हो सकते हैं। व्यक्ति की अपने व दूसरों के बारे में जागरूकता को बढ़ाने के लिए किए गए विशेष प्रयत्न उनके व्यवहार को प्रभावित करते हैं तथा उनकी आत्मशक्ति और सामर्थ्य को भी बढ़ावा देते हैं। ये दो विद्यार्थी अपनी परेशानी और असंतोष का कारण समझने में असमर्थ हैं, शायद इसलिए क्योंकि उनकी अपने बारे में सोच नकारात्मक है। प्रायः हम जो सोचते और महसूस करते हैं, वही हमारे व्यवहार में भी दिखाई देता है और विभिन्न परिस्थितियों में सामंजस्य की योग्यता को प्रभावित करता है। इस उम्र में विद्यार्थियों का अधिकांश समय पढ़ाई में ही बीतता है और वो विषय ज्ञान द्वारा बाह्य जगत की जानकारी ही लेने में लगे रहते हैं, परंतु विषय ज्ञान का प्रयोग स्वयं की जानकारी बढ़ाने के लिए भी किया जा सकता है। विभिन्न विषयों जैसे भाषा, समाजशास्त्र, विज्ञान तथा अन्य क्रियाकलापों को अनेकानेक तरीकों से जोड़ा जा सकता है। विषय ज्ञान को प्रतिदिन के अनुभवों व परिस्थितियों से जोड़कर उनसे संबंधित विचारों, भावनाओं और व्यवहारों के आपसी विचार विमर्श से विद्यार्थियों की अपने व दूसरों के प्रति समझ को बढ़ाया जा सकता है। इससे उनकी स्वाभाविक सकारात्मक प्रवृत्तियों और विचारों को भी उभारने और उन्हें विकसित करने में सहायता मिलती है।
आज का हमारा विषय है मैं अथवा आत्म। आज हम यह जानने का प्रयास करेंगे कि हमें अपनी और दूसरों के बारे में कितना जानते हैं। इसके लिए मैं तुमसे कुछ सवाल करूंगी, जिससे तुम्हें यह पता चलेगा कि तुम्हें इस विषय में कितनी जानकारी है। अगर मैं तुमसे कहूं कि कुछ अपने बारे में बताओ, तो तुम क्या कहोगे? मीरा, क्या तुम एक वाक्य में बताओगी?
मेरा नाम मीरा है, मैं कक्षा 9 में पढ़ती हूँ और मैं हिंदुस्तानी हूँ।
सुनीता, बोलो बोलो।
She is nobody.
Even nobody is somebody. और कोई?
मेरा नाम राहुल है, मैं क्लास 9 का स्टूडेंट हूँ। क्लास में मुझे सब जानते हैं और मेरे बहुत से दोस्त हैं।
सुनील?
मेरा नाम सुनील है, पर
मुझे किसी से बात करना पसंद नहीं है।
मैम आप भी अपने बारे में कुछ बताइए।
मुझे दूसरों से मिलना जुलना पसंद है, विशेषकर मुझे बच्चों के साथ रहना अच्छा लगता है। तो हमने देखा कि हम सब अपने विषय में अलग अलग तरीके से सोचते और महसूस करते हैं। अब मैं चाहूंगी कि तुम कक्षा में किसी एक साथी को चुनो और उसके विषय में 2 अच्छी बातें कहो।
मैं सोचती हूँ सुनीता बड़ी इंटेलिजेंट है, क्योंकि वो कक्षा में सवालों के जवाब बहुत जल्दी देती है। ओह, मुझे नहीं पता था कि तुम मेरे बारे में इतना अच्छा सोचती हो। मुझे तो ये लगता है कि तुम बहुत अच्छी पेंटिंग करती हो और तुम्हें दूसरों का ख्याल भी बहुत रहता है।
और कोई?
मैं सुनील के बारे में कुछ बताऊं?
हाँ हाँ, क्यों नहीं।
सुनील बड़ा ही कर्टियस और सिंसियर है। यह अपना हर काम बड़ी सीरियसली करता है, पर पता नहीं क्यों इसे हमसे बात करना पसंद नहीं। बात ही नहीं करता, बस अपनी ही दुनिया में खोया रहता है।
तुझे पता है बास्केटबॉल भी बहुत अच्छा खेलता है।
फिर वो किसी चीज़ में एक्टिव पार्ट क्यों नहीं लेता?
पता नहीं यार, किसी का जवाब ही नहीं देता।
मैंने भी उससे 2-4 बार बात करनी चाहिए तो उसने कोई जवाब ही नहीं दिया।
हाँ यार, मेरे साथ भी यही हुआ था।
मुझे लगता है हमारी क्लास की सुनीता बड़ी इंटेलिजेंट है, क्योंकि वो कक्षा में सवालों के जवाब बहुत जल्दी जल्दी देती है।
और मनीषा, उससे तो हर टीचर बहुत इम्प्रेस है, क्योंकि वो कक्षा में अपना काम बहुत जल्दी सबमिट कर देती है। वैसे हमारी क्लास के सारे बच्चे बहुत सिंसियर हैं। राधा को ही देख लो, इतना अच्छा गाती है, इतने सारे कॉम्पिटिशन में से प्राइजेस भी मिले हैं।
और मोहित, वो कितना अच्छा भाग लेता है।
अब मैं यह चाहूंगी कि इस अभ्यास के बाद आप अपने प्रति कैसा महसूस कर रहे हैं यह बताएं। सुनील, क्या तुम बताना चाहोगे?
मुझे नहीं पता था कि सब लोग मेरे बारे में इतनी अच्छी बातें सोचते हैं, पर मैं नहीं सोचता कि मुझ में सारी अच्छाइयाँ ही हैं, क्योंकि मैं पढ़ाई में तो अच्छा कर नहीं पाता। मेरे सब दोस्त इतना अच्छा कर रहे हैं।
इसका अर्थ है कि हम अपने बारे में पूरी तरह नहीं जानते, फिर भी तुम पढ़ाई में अच्छा करना चाहते हो, यह जानकर मुझे खुशी हुई।
मुझे दूसरों से अपने बारे में सुनकर बड़ा अच्छा लगा।
आज हमें पता लगा कि जो हम अपने बारे में सोचते हैं और जो दूसरे हमारे बारे में सोचते हैं, उसमें कितना फ़र्क होता है। अगर इस तरह की बातचीत के मौके हमें मिलते रहें तो हम अपनी ही दुनिया में न रहें।
अब मैं तुम्हें घर के लिए एक असाइनमेंट दूंगी। आप सबको 5 अपनी व 5 अपने साथी की विशेषताएं लिखकर लानी है। तुम्हें जो तुमने अपने बारे में लिखा है और जो तुम्हारे साथी ने तुम्हारे विषय में लिखा है, उसे मिलाना होगा।
इस अभ्यास को अपने किसी अभिन्न मित्र के साथ करके देखें। तुम्हारे अपने बारे में तथा तुम्हारे मित्र के तुम्हारे बारे में जो विचार हैं, उनके कारणों की अपने मित्र के साथ व्याख्या कीजिए।
चलो यार, गाना गाते हैं। सुनील को सुनील, आ जाओ। कमान यार, आ जाना, हमारे साथ गाना गा। चल गाना गाते हैं।
नहीं यार, गाना।
अरे गाने में क्या है यार?
गाना नहीं यार।
अरे गाने में क्या है?
गाना।
प्लीज चल ना। क्या यार तू बस।
संगीत, नाटक, बातचीत, संगोष्ठी और नृत्य आदि स्वयं अभिव्यक्ति के और भी उत्तम साधन माने गए हैं। इनकी सहायता से आत्म जागरूकता को बढ़ाया जा सकता है।
हथेली के ऊपर आराम से बैठ जाइए। अब राइट पैर को आगे की ओर मोड़ते हुए, आगे से मोड़ते हुए पीछे तक ले जाएंगे। घुटने के ऊपर घुटना आना चाहिए आपका, पूरा पैर मोड़िए। और सभी बच्चे इसके बाद राइट हैंड को ऊपर की ओर से ले जाएंगे, लेफ्ट हैंड को पीछे से उंगलियों को क्रॉस करते हुए पकड़ेंगे।
सुनील, क्या तुम श्रवण कुमार के नाटक में भाग नहीं ले रहे?
बेटा श्रवण, मैं ही तुम्हारा हत्यारा हूं। मैंने ही तुम्हारा वध किया है। मैं अपराधी हूं, मुझे दंड दो।
महाराज, जो होना था सो हो गया। अब शोक करने से क्या लाभ? कृपया ये जलपात्र ले जाएं और मेरे प्यासे माता पिता की प्यास बुझाएं।
मान्यवर, जल ग्रहण कीजिए।
कौन हो तुम? बोलते क्यों नहीं? जब तक तुम मुंह से कुछ नहीं बोलोगे हम लोग पानी नहीं पिएंगे।
मैं अयोध्या का राजा दशरथ हूँ, आपके पीने के लिए जल आया हूँ।
और मेरा पुत्र श्रवण कुमार कहाँ है?
पहले आप लोग जल ग्रहण करें।
नहीं, पहले मुझे यह बताओ कि मेरा पुत्र कहाँ है?
आपका पुत्र तो अब इस दुनिया से
नहीं, ये नहीं हो सकता।
इसमें से तुम कुछ भी चुनो और ड्रॉ करो जिसमें तुम अपने आप को देखते हो, साथ ही उसे चुनने का कारण भी लिखो।
ये पत्थर किस काम का है?
क्या हुआ? क्या बात? क्यों? इस पत्थर को तुम पेंट कर सकते हो। पेंट करने के बाद ये बहुत खूबसूरत लगेगा। इसकी बिल्कुल काया ही बदल जाएगी।
ठीक है मैम।
सुनील, तुमने देखा वही पत्थर पेंट करके कितना खूबसूरत लगने लगा है। इसी तरह कोई भी चीज अच्छी या बुरी नहीं होती, ये हमारे ऊपर है हम उसे कैसा बनाते हैं। जैसे एक मूर्तिकार पत्थर को तराश कर सुंदर मूर्तियां बनाता है, इसी तरह जो हम सोचते हैं हम वैसा ही करते हैं, और यानी कि उसका भाव हमारे हर कार्य में दिखाई देता है। इसीलिए सकारात्मक ढंग से सोचना सफलता की ओर ले जाता है और गुणों को बढ़ावा देता है। इसी थीम को ध्यान में रखकर आज हम एक ऐड बनाएंगे। किसी भी विज्ञापन की थीम क्या होती है मीरा?
मैम, उस प्रोडक्ट की अच्छाइयों को उभारना।
ठीक है, क्या तुम अपने आप पर कोई विज्ञापन बना सकते हो? उसमें कोई शीर्षक हो या कुछ पंक्तियां लिखो, चाहे तो अपना चित्र भी बना सकते हो।
विद्यार्थियों को प्रतिदिन के कार्यों में ये जानने में कि वो क्या चाहते हैं और क्या नहीं, तथा अपने लक्ष्यों की प्राप्ति के लिए उन्हें क्या करना है और क्या नहीं करना चाहिए, इसमें सहायता मिलती है। इससे उन्हें निर्णय लेने तथा समस्याओं को सुलझाने में भी मदद मिलती है।
अरे सुनील, तुमने क्या सोचा है? क्या तुम आ रहे हो ट्रिप में?
मैं कुछ फैसला नहीं कर पा रहा हूँ। मम्मी कहती है कि वहाँ जाना सेफ नहीं है। क्या तुमने आए दिन न्यूज़पेपर में इतने सारे एक्सीडेंट्स के बारे में नहीं पढ़ा?
अरे लेकिन सोचो तो, कितना मजा आएगा पूरी क्लास के साथ जाने में और एंजॉय करने में। मुझे लगता है तुम्हें इस बारे में अपनी माँ से बात करनी होगी, या फिर मैं बात करूँ?
मैं कुछ फैसला नहीं कर पा रहा। मम्मी कहती है कि हम ही तुम्हें ले जाएंगे।
शैक्षिक एवं पर्यटन भ्रमण योजना की रूपरेखा। आवश्यक तथ्यों को खोजें, आवश्यकता अनुसार सूची बनाएं, विकल्पों को ध्यान में रखें, किन वस्तुओं को छोड़ा जा सकता है, किन्हें ले जाना जरूरी है। अपने निर्णय का परिणाम ध्यान में रखें, उस परिणाम का विचार करें। यदि आप वे वस्तुएं छोड़ देंगे जो नितांत आवश्यक हैं और उन्हें ले जाएं जिनके बिना भी काम चल सकता है। विस्तार पूर्वक विचार करें व निर्णय लें। इन सभी पर विचार करें और अपनी योजना बनाएं। इस फॉर्मूला को कौन समझ गया है?
मैम, मैं सोच रही थी कि मैं यात्रा के लिए खूब सारे कपड़े और खाने का सामान ले जाऊंगी, पर इस चर्चा के बाद मुझे ऐसा लगता है कि मुझे अनावश्यक चीजें निकाल देनी चाहिए। इससे मेरी यात्रा आसान हो जाएगी।
बहुत अच्छा, आप सब शायद यह बात समझ गए होंगे। मैं खुशी और उत्साह के भाव तुम सबके चेहरे पे देख रही हूँ। इस सूची में सुनील, तुम्हारा नाम नहीं है? क्या तुम जाना नहीं चाहते?
हाँ मैम। नहीं मैम, कुछ पता नहीं मैम, कुछ तय नहीं किया।
अब आप सोचिए और निर्णय कीजिए आज की इस परिचर्चा पर।
सुनील बड़ा ही कर्टियस और सिंसियर है। यह अपना हर काम बड़ी सीरियसली करता है।
तुझे पता है, बास्केटबॉल बहुत अच्छा खेलता है।
फिर वो किसी चीज़ में एक्टिव पार्ट क्यों नहीं लेता?
पता नहीं यार, किसी का जवाब ही नहीं देता।
मैंने भी उससे 2-4 बार बात करनी चाहिए तो उसने कोई जवाब ही नहीं दिया।
सुनील, क्या तुम श्रवण कुमार के नाटक में भाग नहीं ले रहे?
आगे बढ़ता रहे कारवाने वतन, तो न जाना।
सब मुझसे कितनी अच्छी तरह बात करते हैं। मैं ये कोशिश करूँगा कि मैं ज़्यादा चेयरफुल बनूँ और दूसरों के साथ ज़्यादा इंटरेक्ट कर सकूँ। कल मैं मम्मी से जयपुर जाने के लिए बात करूँगा।
देखो बेटे, जितनी गति करोगे उतनी ही प्रगति होगी, इसलिए गति करने से कभी भी पीछे मत हटना।
देखो बेटा, तुम्हारे डैडी जो कह रहे हैं उसको ध्यान से सुनो, तुम्हारे काम आएगा।
माता पिता एवं शिक्षकों के द्वारा दी गई जानकारी एवं प्रेरणा बच्चों को उनकी क्षमताओं और कमियों की ओर जागरूक करती है तथा वो क्या कर सकते हैं और क्या नहीं, इसके प्रति एक वास्तविक दृष्टिकोण पैदा करती है। ऐसे विद्यार्थियों में स्वयं की ओर स्वीकृति एवं विश्वास की भावना अधिक होगी तथा वो जीवन में वास्तविक लक्ष्य बना सकेंगे।
सुनील, देखते हैं आज आता है या नहीं।
हाँ यार, देखते हैं आते नहीं आता।
सुनील आ गया।
आजा आजा, जल्दी आ, जल्दी आ।
सुनील, हमें मालूम था तुम जरूर आओगे।
हाँ, मालूम जरूर आओगे।
आत्म अभिव्यक्ति तथा अपनी योग्यताओं और विशेष गुणों को प्रयोग करने के अवसर विद्यार्थियों के व्यक्तित्व को निखारने में सहायक होंगे।
आगे बढ़ता रहे, आगे बढ़ता रहे, आगे बढ़ता रहे, कारवाने वतन सो न जाना कहीं, कारवाने वतन सो न जाना कहीं, कारवाने वतन गाँव चुकाए वो चुकना नहीं, जिंदगी तेरी
ਅੱਖਰਾਂ ਦੇ ਅਦਬ ਵਿੱਚੋਂ ਹੀ ਮੈਂ ਕਿਹਾ ਸੀ, ਚੁੱਪ ਦੇ ਇਸ ਰੁੱਖ ਨਾਲੋਂ ਮੈਂ ਅੱਖਰ ਨਹੀਂ ਤੋੜੇ, ਇਹ ਤਾਂ ਜੋ ਰੁੱਖ ਨਾਲੋਂ ਝੜੇ ਸੀ, ਮੈਂ ਉਹੀ ਅੱਖਰ ਚੁਣਦੀ ਰਹੀ। ਤੁਸਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਜਾਂ ਕਿਸੇ ਨੂੰ ਮੈਂ ਕੁਛ ਨਹੀਂ ਆਖਿਆ, ਇਹ ਤਾਂ ਜੋ ਲਹੂ ਵਿੱਚ ਬੋਲੇ ਸੀ, मैं ਉਹੀ ਅੱਖਰ ਸੁਣਦੀ ਰਹੀ। ਬਿਜਲੀ ਦੀ ਲੰਬੀ ਲਕੀਰ ਸੀ, ਛਾਤੀ 'ਚੋਂ ਲੰਘੀ ਸੀ, ਇਹ ਤਾਂ ਕੁਛ ਉਸੇ ਦੇ ਟੋਟੇ ਮੈਂ ਉਂਗਲਾਂ ਤੇ ਗਿਣਦੀ ਰਹੀ, ਤੇ ਚੰਨ ਨੇ ਚਰਖੇ ਤੇ ਬਹਿ ਕੇ ਬਦਲਾਂ ਦੀ ਕਪਾਹ ਕੱਤੀ, ਇਹ ਤਾਂ ਕੁਛ ਉਹੀ ਧਾਗੇ ਨੇ ਜੋ ਖੱਡੀ ਤੇ ਉਣਦੀ ਰਹੀ।
अमृता प्रीतम देश की एक महान साहित्यकार, एक ऐसी लेखिका जो सामाजिक चेतना के लिए लिखती रही हैं। अमृता जी का जन्म अविभाजित पंजाब के गुजरांवाला गांव में 31 अगस्त 1929 को हुआ था। आपकी माता राज जी का देहावसान आपकी अल्पायु में ही हो गया। आपका लालन पालन आपके पिता श्री करतार सिंह हितकारी ने किया था। आपके पिताजी का निधन 1946 में हो गया। अमृता जी बचपन में अक्सर चांद में अपनी मां को ढूंढती और इसी से प्रेरित होकर 8 वर्ष की आयु में ही उन्होंने अपनी पहली रचना लिखी।
बहुत छोटी थी, छत पर जाती, माँ नहीं थी, चांद को देखती तो लगता चांद में जो निशान हैं वो मेरी माँ का नाम लिखा हुआ है। तो मैं सोचती हूँ कि पहले अक्षर चांद से गिरे थे मेरे कागज़ पर, तो उसी से छोटी छोटी कविताएं लिखने लगी। पहले पिताजी को दिखा लेती क्योंकि वो तो वक्त के माने हुए लेखक थे।
अमृता जी की पहली रचना जो उनकी कविताओं का संकलन थी, ठंडियां किरणा के नाम से 1935 में प्रकाशित हुई। शुरू में आपने पंजाबी में लिखा और बाद में हिंदी में लिखना शुरू किया।
सबसे पहला प्रभाव जो मुझ पर पड़ा वो हमारे पंजाब के सूफी शायरों का था। शाह हुसैन, सुल्तान बाहू, बुल्ले शाह और उसके बाद वारिस शाह।
अमृता जी को अपने पिताजी के साए में कई महान साहित्यकारों से मिलने के अवसर भी प्राप्त हुए। इन्हीं में से एक को याद करके अमृता जी बताती हैं,
मैं रविंद्रनाथ टैगोर से मिली थी जब मैं बहुत बच्ची थी। वो लाहौर में आए थे और मेरे पिता मुझे ले गए थे उनसे मिलवाने। अब मेरी पंजाबी ज़ुबान तो उन्हें आती नहीं थी, मुझे कहने लगे कुछ सुनाओ। मैंने पंजाबी में एक नज़म कह दी। ये अच्छा था कि वहाँ कोई बैठा हुआ था मेहरबान, उसने पंजाबी नज़म को अंग्रेज़ी में करके उनको बताया, तो उन्होंने मुझे जो प्यार दिया वो अभी तक उसे महसूस कर सकती हूँ।
अमृता जी ऑल इंडिया रेडियो लाहौर, जो अविभाजित भारत का एक रेडियो स्टेशन था, उससे 1937 में जुड़ी और सबके मन में जगह बना बैठी। अमृता जी की लघु कहानियों का पहला संकलन कुंजियां के नाम से 1943 में प्रकाशित हुआ। 1947 में देश के बंटवारे के समय उन्हें दिल्ली आना पड़ा। इन्हीं दिनों उन्होंने अपनी अमर कविता अज आखां वारिस शाह नू की रचना की।
मैं तो वारिस शाह से ही कह सकती थी, जिसने इस देश की मिट्टी में हीर और रांझे की मोहब्बत को किस मुकाम पर पहुंचा दिया कि आज घर घर में गाई जाती है। और सिर्फ पाकिस्तान में नहीं, हिंदुस्तान में भी लोग गाते हैं और रोते हैं। वो हमारा विरसा है।
1948 में एक बार फिर आप ऑल इंडिया रेडियो दिल्ली से जुड़ी और यहां आपने कई कार्यक्रमों का संचालन किया, जिनमें आवाज की दुनिया के दोस्तों कार्यक्रम काफी सराहा गया।
वो बात एक हफ्तावार प्रोग्राम की है, जब मैं सुनने वालों के ख़तों के जवाब देती थी, तो मुझे लगता है कि मैं उन्हें बहुत करीब पाती और बड़े प्यार से उनसे बात करती, उनके सवाल का जवाब देती और उन्हें मुखातब होती थी, आवाज़ की दुनिया वालों, इस तरह से।
अमृता जी के उपन्यास सुनहेड़े पर 1956 में साहित्य अकादमी पुरस्कार प्राप्त हुआ। आपको विदेशों में भी कई पुरस्कार मिले। अमेरिका के एक शहर में तो उनके नाम पर एक लेन का नाम भी अमृता प्रीतम लेन रखा गया है। अमृता प्रीतम की रचना अज आखां वारिस शाह नू भारत के अलावा पाकिस्तान में भी काफी लोकप्रिय हुई है।
वारिस शाह भी अपने कलाम को रूहानियत के मुकाम पर ले जाते हैं, जब कहते हैं सतर सतर बीबी हीर होई, हरफ हरफ रंजेटड़ा यार होए। इसका तो पंक्ति पंक्ति हीर है और एक एक हरफ रांझा हुआ। कहने को दुनिया की दास्तान है, लेकिन पहुंचती मार्फत के मुकाम पर है। मुझे याद आता है, एक बार पाकिस्तान से एक दोस्त आए मिलने, तो उन्होंने थोड़े से केले मेरे आगे रख दिए। मैं हैरान हुई, ये क्या? कहने लगी ये मेरी तरफ से नहीं है, मैं आ रहा था तो एक केले बेचने वाला भागता हुआ आया, मुझे कहने लगा तुम दिल्ली जा रहे हो? मैंने कहा हाँ। कहता तुम अमृता से मिलोगे? इन्होंने कहा जाहिर है ज़रूर मिलूँगा। कहते जिसने वारिस शाह नज़म कही थी? उन्होंने कहा हाँ मिलूँगा। कहते ये केले उसे दे देना, मैं यही दे सकता हूँ, मैं समझूंगा कि मेरा आधा हज हो गया। इस प्यार का मैं क्या करूँ?
अमृता जी के लेख एवं कविताएं पाठ्यक्रमों में भी शामिल हैं। यही नहीं, उनकी रचनाएं आज भी पाकिस्तान में बीए स्तर तक की कक्षाओं में पढ़ाई जाती हैं।
ਹਟਾਇਆ ਹੈ ਤੇ ਹਰ ਸੜਕ ਦੀ ਦਿਸ਼ਾ ਦਾ ਨਾਮ ਪੂੰਝ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਹੈ। ਪਰ ਜੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਲੱਭਣਾ ਹੈ ਤਾਂ ਹਰ ਦੇਸ਼ ਦੇ ਹਰ ਸ਼ਹਿਰ ਦੀ ਹਰ ਗਲੀ ਦਾ ਬੂਹਾ ਠਕੋਰੋ। ਇਹ ਇੱਕ ਸਰਾਪ ਹੈ, ਇੱਕ ਵਰ ਹੈ ਤੇ ਜਿੱਥੇ ਵੀ ਸੁਤੰਤਰ ਰੂਹ ਦੀ ਝਲਕ ਪਵੇ ਸਮਝਣਾ ਉਹ ਮੇਰਾ ਘਰ ਹੈ।
अपनी कृतियां प्रकाशित कराने के सिलसिले में वास्ता पढ़ने वाले लोगों, संपादक, प्रकाशक आदि के साथ अपने अनुभवों के बारे में अमृता जी बताती हैं।
मैं खुश नसीब हूँ कि मुझे बहुत अच्छे प्रकाशक मिले। हिंदी में राजपाल से शुरू किया और आज तक उनसे रिश्ता बना हुआ है। बहुत अच्छा रिश्ता, बड़े अदब अदाब का रिश्ता, जैसे विश्वनाथ जी से। और हिंद पॉकेट बुक में दीनानाथ जी से बना हुआ है, शेखर जी से बना हुआ है। किताब घर ने मेरी बहुत सी किताबें छापी हैं। इनके पास संपादक बहुत अच्छे हैं। जैसे हिंद पॉकेट बुक में थे नफीस अफरीदी, उनसे मुझे बड़ी तसल्ली हुई थी। जब वो एक एक बात पर एक गलती नहीं जाने देते थे, मुझे पूछते। इसी तरह राजपाल के पास महेंद्र कुल श्रेष्ठ बहुत नफीस संपादक हैं, यानी लफ्ज़ लफ्ज़ की पहचान रखते हैं।
अमृता जी को 1958 में चित्रकार इंद्रजीत सिंह इमरोज का साथ मिला। अमृता जी ने इमरोज के साथ मिलकर नए लेखकों को प्रोत्साहन देने के लिए एक मासिक पत्र का नागमणि का प्रकाशन 1966 में आरंभ किया। ये पंजाबी की पहली साहित्यिक पत्रिका है।
हमारी ज़बान में जो पूरे मेरिट पर लिखा जा रहा है उसको हाईलाइट करना और पॉजिटिविटी को हाईलाइट करना, क्योंकि नेगेटिविटी तो चारों ओर बरस रही है। उसमें दोस्ती की बात करना, अमन की बात करना और दूसरी ज़बानों से कुछ तर्जमा भी उसमें पेश करना। जैसे मैं जिन देशों में भी गई हूँ, हर देश की 10-10 कविताएं मैंने तर्जमा की हैं।
अमृता जी को 1969 में भारत सरकार ने पद्मश्री से सम्मानित किया। 1973 में दिल्ली विश्वविद्यालय ने आपको डीलिट की मानद उपाधि प्रदान की। 1979 में बुल्गारिया की सरकार ने आपको राष्ट्रीय सम्मान प्रदान किया। 1982 में आपकी चर्चित रचना रसीदी टिकट पर भारतीय ज्ञानपीठ पुरस्कार प्राप्त हुआ। पंजाबी भाषा के सबसे पहले रचनाकार के रूप में अमृता जी को ही यह सम्मान प्राप्त हुआ। 1983 में विश्व भारती विश्वविद्यालय शांति निकेतन ने भी आपको डीलिट की मानद उपाधि से विभूषित किया। आपको जबलपुर और बंबई विश्वविद्यालय ने भी एक रचनाकार के रूप में सम्मानित किया। सन 1986 में अमृता प्रीतम की साहित्यिक उपलब्धियों की लोकप्रियता को मान्यता देते हुए भारत सरकार ने उन्हें राज्यसभा की सदस्यता प्रदान की। 1987 में फ्रांस की सरकार ने आपको सर्वोच्च राष्ट्रीय सम्मान से नवाजा। अमृता प्रीतम को पंजाबी साहित्य अकादमी ने 2000 में शताब्दी का काव्य पुरस्कार देकर दिल्ली ही नहीं भारत के साहित्य प्रेमियों को सम्मानित किया।
मैं पाकिस्तान दे एक शायर दी लंबी नज़म दा एक थोड़ियां जिहियां सतरां पेश करनियां। ऐ खुदा सब कहानियों और नज़मों में सच्चाई, अमन और मोहब्बत उतार। अदीबों की तहरीरों में असर बरकरार रख और उन्हें नई सच्चाइयाँ लिखने का हौसला दे। और महात्मा बुद्ध के दरख्त के नीचे मोहब्बत की गवाही को मोहतबर बना। ऐ खुदा लालटेन की रोशनी में लिखी इस दुआ को कबूल कर।
पंजाब के मुख्यमंत्री ने भी आपको पंजाबी भाषा एवं साहित्य की विशिष्ट सेवा हेतु सम्मानित किया। कारगिल युद्ध के समय जन चेतना के लिए अमृता जी ने अपनी रचनाओं में शांति और अमन की बात की है।
उन वादियों पहाड़ों पर जाना कि जहां बर्फ की चोटियों पर अंधेरा उतर आया है, आंखों में नफरत का अंधेरा, हाथों में हथियारों का अंधेरा। वो मिट्टी तुम्हें याद करती है, तुम जाना और वहां कुछ किरणें छिड़क देना।
आज देश की परिस्थितियों में स्त्रियों की दशा को देखते हुए अमृता जी बहुत भावुक हो जाती हैं।
गुस्सा आता है तो हम आम लोगों को सेंस ऑफ बिलोंगिंग क्यों नहीं दे पाए।
अपने पसंद के लेखकों के बारे में अमृता जी ने कहा,
सबसे पहले तो ओशो का नाम लूंगी जिसे मैंने हरफ हरफ पढ़ा है। फिर आप हिंदी की बात करेंगे तो मैं कमलेश्वर का नाम लूंगी जिन्होंने अभी अभी कितने पाकिस्तान एक ऐसी चीज़ लिखी है जिसे ऐतिहासिक चीज़ कहना चाहिए। और पंजाबी में मोहनजीत की नज़में हैं।
अपनी अन्य रचनाओं के अलावा अमृता जी ने अपनी जीवनी भी लिखी है।
स्वजीवनी लिखना आईने में खुद को देखना है, तो खुद जैसे है उसमें आप अदल बदल नहीं कर सकते। बहुत से लोग अच्छा दिखने के लिए लिखते हैं या कुछ इस तरह के प्रभाव देने के लिए, मैंने वो नहीं किया। मैं खुद को देखना चाहती थी क्योंकि मेरी जो तलाश है, मेरी जो जस्तजू है वो इनर एवोल्यूशन की है। उस यात्रा में वो मुकाम आए जब पूरी कायनात को, उसकी वाइब्रेशंस को मैंने कुछ झलक देखी है लेकिन और पूरी तरह देख पाऊँ। सियासी तौर पर मैं समझती हूँ कि अपने देश में सबसे पहले जवाहरलाल नेहरू थे, जो ये नहीं रखाव रखते थे कि आम आदमी से ज़रा हट के बात करना है या ज़रा ऊंचे बैठ के बात करना है। मुझे याद है एक औरत बड़े गुस्से में थी, घर लुट गया था, कुछ पास नहीं था, उसने जवाहरलाल जी का कॉलर पकड़ लिया। ये आज़ादी है जो तूने दी है? तो जवाहरलाल जी ने कहा, देखो हाँ ये आज़ादी है, ये आज़ादी है इसलिए तुम प्राइम मिनिस्टर का कॉलर पकड़ सकती हो। हो ची मिन जब आए तो मुझे तारुफ कराया किसी ने। जब उन्हें पता लगा कि मैं नज़म कहती हूँ तो उन्होंने मुझे गले से लगा लिया और मेरा माथा चूम कर कहने लगे, हम दोनों सिपाही हैं, तुम कलम से लड़ती हो, मैं हथियार से।
अमृता जी अपनी कहानी कादम्बरी पर बनी फिल्म के बारे में बताती हैं।
उसमें काम करने वाले भी बहुत अच्छे थे, लेकिन फिर भी सोचती हूँ कि जितना मौका उनको मिला काम करने का, उस तरह वो फिल्म को कैनवास पर नहीं उतार पाए। जैसे माँ के ट्रेजेडी से ये सारी कहानी बनी, तो वो ट्रेजेडी उन्होंने दिखाई नहीं। अब बना रहे हैं पिंजर पर, और मुझे तसल्ली है कि बहुत बड़े डायरेक्टर बना रहे हैं।
अमृता जी ने कई लोगों की रचनाएं प्रकाशित की, किंतु पिछले दिनों उन्होंने एक पाकिस्तानी लेखिका के अनुरोध पर उनकी किताब दूसरे आदम की बेटी का संपादन किया। ये भारतीय साहित्य के इतिहास में काफी सुखद घटना है।
तौसीफ आपा पर ये जो किताब आई है, ख़ास तौर से मतलब दूसरे आदम की बेटी, तो दूसरे आदम और पहले आदम को अलग किया है खुद तौसीफ आपा ने, और मुझे लगा कि दूसरे आदम के हम सब संतान हैं, और ये सही है कि वो पहली ही संतान हैं और हम उनके बाद की संतानें हैं, लेकिन हैं दूसरे आदम की, और इससे पहले भी और रही होंगी, लेकिन वो हमारे सामने नहीं हैं और उनकी चीज़ें हमारे पास नहीं हैं। मैं बहुत सोचता रहा, जब ये किताब कल रात मैंने पूरी पढ़ी, मुझे ये लगा कि अमृता जी ने कितना बड़ा काम किया है।
बहुत इनाम मिले, एजाज़ मिले, मेडल मिले, पढ़ाई में, लिखाई में, लोगों की तरफ से, इदारों की तरफ से, हुक्मरानों की तरफ से। उन्होंने मुझे दूसरे आदम की बेहिसाब औलादों की साथी समझ लिया। इंटेलेक्चुअल्स में पहली बार मेरी शनाख्त, मेरी रिकग्निशन, मुझे जो पहचाना है, तस्लीम किया है, अमृता जी। दुनिया लिखती है अमृता प्रीतम के ऊपर, अमृता प्रीतम ने मेरे लिए किताब लिखी है, अफजल तौसीफ के लिए। ये तो बहुत बड़ा, सबसे बड़ा एहसास, सबसे बड़ा ऑनर है जो अब तक की ज़िंदगी में मुझे मिला है।
जिंदगी के अपने व्यस्ततम समय से कुछ समय निकालकर अमृता जी अपने परिवार के बच्चों पर भी प्यार निछावर करती हैं।
अमान, मैं तुम दोनों बच्चों की एल्बम देख रही थी, तो कुछ तो पहचान पाई कि कहाँ की है, कुछ नहीं पहचान पाई। तुम्हें याद है ये तस्वीर शिल्पी की है ना?
हाँ जी।
ये कहाँ की है?
ये तो यहाँ की है, घर में ही थी।
अपने घर में की है ना?
हाँ जी।
अच्छा। और ये
जो ऊपर वो बना नहीं था ना फ्लोर, ये ऊपर छत की है।
ऊपर ये मैं बिल्कुल नहीं पहचान पाई कहाँ की है।
ये तो जब हम बॉम्बे में घूम रहे थे वहाँ की है।
ये तुम्हें याद है जब मैंने तुम्हें कंधे पर, पीठ पर उठाया हुआ था, याद है?
हाँ जी।
हमने अंत में अमृता जी से जीवन और रचनाकार के रिश्ते के बारे में उनके विचार जानने चाहे तो उन्होंने कहा,
कलाकार का काम है सिर्फ यात्रा, अंतर की यात्रा। रास्ता चलते कोई आपको फूल देता है या पानी का प्याला दे देता है तो आप उसका शुक्रिया करते, लेकिन रुकते नहीं देता तो कोई शिकवा नहीं करते, किसी से मांगते नहीं। मेरी ज़िंदगी 3 हिस्सों में बंटी हुई है। तलब, सबसे पहले एक प्यास, जिज्ञासा जानने की, दूसरी इश्क, मोहब्बत, दोस्ती, और जिसमें कोई नेगेटिविटी शामिल नहीं होती, और तीसरा मुकाम आता है मार्फत का, जिसमें इंसान अपने को खोजता हुआ, जैसे शाह हुसैन की लाइन है, फ़कीरा आपे अल्लाह हो, उस मुकाम तक पहुंचना, उस कायनाती हुस्न तक पहुंचना जिसमें कोई जाति पाति मज़हब कुछ बात सब छूट जाते हैं।
अमृता जी आज भी उसी सामर्थ्य और शिद्दत के साथ सृजनात्मक रचनाओं के क्षेत्र में कार्यशील हैं जैसे पहले हुआ करती थीं। यद्यपि आयु का बंधन कभी कभी उन्हें विश्राम करने को बाध्य करता है, फिर भी वर्तमान में आप गहन चिंतन एवं दरवेशी और मार्फत वाली स्थिति के संग जीती हैं और उसी रंग में आज भी उनका रचनाकार जीवित है।
सपना ही तू, सच तू, सपना ही तू, खैर को अपना वाह सजन, वाह सजन, सच तू, सपना ही तू, सच तू, सपना ही तू।
Hello, I'm Anuradha Malik. In the previous episode of Class 11 Biology, we studied about mitosis. Today we shall study about meiosis, which is another special kind of cell division. Meiosis is also said to be reductional division, which occurs for gametogenesis and results in the production of 4 daughter cells. The meiotic division involves 2 sequential cycles of nuclear and cell division called meiosis I and meiosis II, but there is only one cycle of DNA replication. It involves certain other features such as pairing of homologous chromosomes and recombination between them. The events of meiotic cell division can be grouped under the following phases: prophase 1, metaphase 1, anaphase 1, telophase 1. Then meiosis 2, prophase 2, metaphase 2, anaphase 2 and telophase 2. Meiosis 1 starts with prophase 1, which is longer and more complex than the prophase of mitosis. On the basis of the chromosomal DNA, this phase is further subdivided into 5 categories, namely leptotene, zygotene, pachytene, diplotene and dikinesis. During leptotene, chromosomes gradually become visible under the light microscope. Compaction of chromosomes continues throughout this stage. This is followed by zygotene, during which chromosomes start pairing together, a process called synapses. Such paired chromosomes are called homologous chromosomes. Electron micrographs reveal that synapses is accompanied by formation of a complex structure called synaptonemal complex. This complex, formed by a pair of synapsed homologous chromosomes, is called a bivalent or a tetrad. The first 2 stages of prophase 1 are relatively short-lived. During the third phase, pachytene, the tetrads are more clearly visible under the light microscope. They remain in this stage for longer, maybe for days. Appearance of recombination nodules is characteristic of this stage. These recombination nodules are the sites where exchange of segments, that is, crossing over occurs between the non-sister chromatids of homologous chromosomes. This crossing over is the exchange of genetic material between 2 homologous chromosomes. This is an enzyme mediated process and the enzyme involved is called recombinase. By the end of pachytene, the recombinant chromosomes remains linked at the sites of crossing over. Dissolution of the synaptonemal complex marks the beginning of the next stage called diplotin. During diplotin, the homologous chromosomes of the bivalent separate from each other except at the point of crossover. These points of attachment forming X-shaped structures are called chiasmata. In the cells of some vertebrates, diplotin lasts for months or even up to years. During this phase, the chromosomes decondense and engage in RNA synthesis. In some species, the chromosomes expand enormously, producing structures called lamp brush chromosomes, which resemble the filament of bulbs. Thus, they are called as lamp brush chromosomes. Diakinesis is the final stage of prophase 1. It is marked by terminalization of chiasma. Chromosomes are fully condensed and the meiotic spindle is assembled to prepare for the separation of the homologous chromosomes. By the end of this phase, the nucleolus and the nuclear envelope also break down. Diakinesis in fact represents transition to metaphase. Look at the pictorial depiction of prophase 1. Notice that these are two dyads, meaning there are 4 chromosomes and 2 pairs of chromosomes. In metaphase 1, the bivalent chromosomes align on the equatorial plate. The microtubules from the opposite poles of the spindle attach to the pair of homologous chromosomes. The centromere of each chromosome in a pair is directed towards the opposite poles. Look at this picture of the metaphase. In this diagram, 2 homologous pairs of chromosomes at the metaphase plate are depicted. In each pair, one chromosome is lying towards one pole and the other towards the other pole, attached to the spindle fiber. Anaphase 1. The 2 members of each bivalent seem to repel each other, separate and move towards the opposite poles. The sister chromatids remain associated at their centromeres. Thus, each pole receives only half of the number of chromosomes or the haploid set of chromosomes. The movement of chromosomes is brought about by the shortening of spindle fibers, as depicted in this diagram. Telophase 1 involves the formation of nuclear membrane by the endoplasmic reticulum around the groups of daughter chromosomes at the opposite poles and the appearance of the nucleolus. The chromosomes in many cases do disperse, but they do not reach the extreme extended dispersed state as in the interphase nucleus. Cytokinesis follows this, resulting in a dyad of cells. The stage between the 2 meiotic divisions is called interkinesis and is generally short-lived. After telophase 1, this is how the cells would appear. Meiosis 1 is followed by the second meiosis division or meiosis 2. The second meiotic division is essentially similar to mitosis if mitosis takes place in a haploid cell. It divides each haploid nucleus into 2 haploid nuclei. Meiosis 2 can also be described in 4 phases, namely prophase 2, metaphase 2, anaphase 2 and telophase 2. Prophase 2 is initiated immediately after cytokinesis, usually before chromosomes have fully elongated. By the end of prophase 2, the nuclear membrane disappears and the chromosomes again become compact. Spindle formation is initiated and takes place during this phase. Prophase 2 can be diagrammatically depicted as shown here. Metaphase 2 following prophase 2 is the stage when the chromosomes align at the equator and the microtubules from opposite poles of the spindle get attached to the kinetochores of the sister chromatids. Metaphase 2 in the 2 cells can be diagrammatically depicted as shown in this picture. Anaphase 2 begins with the simultaneous splitting of the centromere of each chromosome. allowing the sister chromatids to move towards the opposite poles of the cells. Anaphase 2 can be diagrammatically depicted as seen in this picture. In telophase 2, the two groups of chromosomes that have reached the opposite poles once again get enclosed by a nuclear envelope, which is formed by the endoplasmic reticulum, and the nucleolus also reappears. The diagrammatic depiction of telophase 2 would look something like this. Cytokinesis follows this, resulting in the formation of a tetrad of cells, that is 4 haploid daughter cells. Before we conclude this lesson, the significance of meiosis. Meiosis maintains a definite and constant number of chromosomes in the sexually reproducing species from one generation to the next. It also increases the genetic variability in the population of organisms from one generation to the next. As you know, variations are very important for the process of evolution. Have a look at this picture of meiosis taking place in animal as well as plant cells. Students, by now you should be able to point out the differences between mitosis and meiosis. Let's write them down. In mitosis, one division completes the process, whereas in meiosis, 2 divisions are required to complete the process. In mitosis, chromosomes do not synapse. In meiosis, homologous chromosomes synapse in prophase. In mitosis, homologous chromosomes do not cross over, whereas in meiosis, homologous chromosomes cross over. Centromeres divide during anaphase in mitosis, whereas in meiosis, centromeres divide in anaphase 2 but not in anaphase 1. Daughter cells in mitosis have the same number of chromosomes as the parent cell. A diploid cell gives rise to a diploid cell, whereas in meiosis, daughter cells have half the number of chromosomes as the parent cell. A diploid cell gives rise to 4 haploid cells. In mitosis, daughter cells have the same genetic information as the parent, whereas in meiosis, daughter cells are genetically different from the parent cell. Meiosis results in growth and replacement of worn out cells and repair. Meiosis results in the formation of sex cells or gametes. After today's lesson, you should be able to answer these questions. First, bring out the differences between mitotic metaphase and metaphase 1 of meiosis. You could support your answer with diagrams in a cell in which the diploid number is 4. Also, differentiate between the mitotic anaphase and anaphase 1 of meiosis. Practice this in a cell where 2n number is equal to 6. So, today's lesson we studied about meiosis, and in the next episode we shall learn about biomolecules. Thank you.
कॉपर सल्फेट विलयन का रंग है नीला, आयरन उसमें हमने है डाला। कुछ देर ठहरो देखो क्या कुछ बदला, घड़ी की सुइयों को चलने दो, आओ अब देखें क्या कुछ बदला। विलयन ने देखो रंग है बदला, कील ने भी देखो रंग है बदला।
क्यों कर बदला, क्यों कर बदला, सोचो जरा सोचो, क्यों कर बदला। क्या कुछ इसमें नयापन आया, क्या कोई इसमें नया पदार्थ आया।
जान लिया तुमने क्या इसका राज छुपा जो सीधा साधा, जान लिया भाई जान लिया, राज छुपा जो सीधा साधा। विस्थापन
रिएक्टिव है भाई, कॉपर को विस्थापित कर डाला, कॉपर सल्फेट का हुआ सफाया, क्योंकि आयरन सल्फेट है बनाया।
विलयन देखो हुआ अभरा है, क्योंकि आयरन सल्फेट बना है। विलयन देखो हुआ अभरा है, क्योंकि आयरन सल्फेट बना है।
कॉपर कहाँ है, कॉपर कहाँ है?
ध्यान से देखो कील पे जमा है, ध्यान से देखो कील पे जमा है। यही तो विस्थापन की क्रिया है, 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 यही तो विस्थापन की क्रिया है।
तो हमारे कार्यक्रम कैसे लगे? आप अपनी प्रतिक्रियाएं और सुझाव हमें भेज सकते हैं। हमारा पता है किशोर मंच, CIET NCERT, श्री अरविंदो मार्ग, नई दिल्ली 110016। आप हमें ईमेल भी कर सकते हैं। हमारा ईमेल पता है ciet.kishormanch@gmail.com और हमारे टोल फ्री नंबर हैं 1800-111-265 और 1800-112-199।